Good evening, everyone. Mr. Mephisto here with one of the most auspicious auspicious guests I've had so far, the Lord of Death, or at least the artist formerly known as the Lord of Death, who might be adopting a quest to retake his title pretty soon.
Oh, I'm here for that.
You're here for that?
Yeah.
And the reason why someone of such a fantastic podium might be on a new quest is because we've got Ossiarch Bone Reapers coming out, brand new death content, and pretty much the only person in the universe I know as excited for this shit as me is you.
Good, yeah. Because the thing that people don't know is that it was that hotel coming back from NashCon where we were staying the night to have that shorter drive back to Wisconsin. We just sat there and went through that preview video, and that was the last one before the Nova preview, and it was just you and me sitting on that bed, just losing our minds as to what we were looking at.
Yeah, because that was the one that had the most stuff. That was the Mortarch one, right, where it actually showed Catacross. Catacross gives the great speech, he says it's not personal. I don't enjoy this, and then at the end he just immediately goes back on it. He's like, but I must admit, there's a part of me that enjoys it a little, and it practically shows the troll face meme where it just zoomed in on his face. That's where we saw the Kavalos Death Riders too, where I'm like, oh shit, I'm getting new Black Knights. I just fucking flipped my lid, and that really, in a weird way, was kind of a key inception moment for what would go on to be the RantCast, because that's where I Nova came out that week after, basically, and then it's I gotta go live and talk about all this shit, because that hype was still fresh from that one night in the hotel, and Dave Nordstrom's just on the bed, just looking over at us, laughing at us. So yeah, I guess just a little maybe background between how I know you, and then maybe you can give us a little taste of why you are so into the death factions, why you were playing Nagash even before LON, stuff like that. But first of all, so you need to know about the time. I'm a very cerebral person. I know there's a little bit of a faux pas over net listing, but for me it's about getting information. I have my wild theories, and then you look at someone's list online and you go, well, how did they make that work? Because I'm here and they're here on what I think is good and stuff. And so one of my first actual memories, and this is before I knew who the fuck Brendan Melnick was actually Adepticon. It was about the year Adepticon, the year LON came out. It was the one you took best death, isn't it?
That's correct. I went all Vanguard doubles and singles. I went 3 for 3 in best in death faction, and all of them were top 10 finishes.
So this is a time pre-LON, pre-AOS 2.0, before Nagash was busted. He's 900 points. And
he was 800.
He was 800 at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's 800, but he didn't have the War Scroll we know and love, or did he? I'm foggy on the timeline.
So the War Scroll is the same as presently constructed. The problem is that there weren't any realm spells. So he had the 2 on his scroll. You still had +1 save on Mystic Shield. You had Arcane Bolt was just straight D3, and then he knew the 3 spells out of the Legions in Nagash book. But the scroll was the same. He just didn't have access to those other 7.
Yeah. Yeah. So he lacked the real power. He kind of lacked the extra power there to really throw his weight around with that +3 to cast, because there's really you get through about 4 or 5 spells and you're like, okay, now what? And you basically did Nagash plus bodies was the list.
Sure did.
And you actually had go ahead.
It was Nagash, Necromancer, 40 skeletons, 10 skeletons, 30 Graveguard.
Yeah, and that was the awesome, though heavily costed Graveguard, especially when a few months later we would get Grimghast Reapers, and you're just looking at these things that fly and do the Graveguard thing.
They do everything Graveguard do in both versions and better.
Yeah. So it's just like, ooh, and for cheaper. So it was like, that was a pretty big landscape moment. So so like I'm just on, at this point I'm still on TGA, and I see, like the list on TGA pop up, like Brendan Melnick's list for best death, and I'm like, okay, someone else there is also a man of fine tastes. Like, I see he's running Nagash, and like, and it wouldn't be until like actually October at Dragonfall where I would meet you in person, and basically I got into the head of the guy who would go on to take best death, but it was not to be for me at that day.
Well, you set him up for me to really get into his head, and I won that game without really rolling any dice, and it was the best. Well, we tied, which meant that I won the tournament.
Right. Well, this guy was so he was the never 5 get you might hear going around. I won't go into it, but there was some questionable terrain. This was a tournament you could bring your own terrain at, and I played him, and I had actually outmaneuvered him on the table and thoroughly got the hand to dust off first by just outmaneuvering him, mirror pooling, because we were the realm we were on, and then like got him. And then, like, it just didn't go through, and I'm like, God damn it. All right. So, like, and now it's to the point where, like, I have completely outmaneuvered you on the table around your stupid terrain. And, like, at that point, I did I actually kind of have learned a hard lesson from that day. But a lot of death players, when you lose Nagash or you lose your general, they go into, like, panic mode. And that did happen to me to an extent where I'm like, God damn it. So now I'm like, this guy's about to hand to dust me. Right back. If his lands, I'm just gonna like fucking flip the table because I outplayed him. I proved that 10 Black Knights beat the shit out of Graveguard by using his own terrain against him by the way I pinned his flank, so he couldn't really pile in all the Graveguard he wanted. And I blew about 10 of them off the table because there isn't a single wasted point between Black Knights versus Ethereal on that War Scroll. They don't care that you're ethereal. They have no rend. It's just that 2 damage. So you watch them scooping 2 models with every failed save. So yeah, and then so that was 3, and then basically ends up playing you in the mirror on the top table the next day, and you're like, he's already shaky about a Nagash mirror, and you're just in his head. So a very cerebral, like top table play. You walk away with the giant dragon. Now we got Dragonfall coming up this weekend.
We sure do.
Sure. Are you going for the 2-peat?
Yep, 2 in a row. That's what we're here on.
All right, so that'll be a nice little sort of bracket to the year. Going back to, am I allowed to know what you're running at Dragonfall? I don't know. Is this top secret?
Yeah. Relian just popped in the chat. I'm running his list because it's dope.
so Slanesh again, right on. Relian, are you? I don't know. Is Relian going to Dragonfall this year? He wasn't there last year, was he?
No, he wasn't there last year, and it doesn't look like he's going this year. What's funny is, and one of the reasons he didn't go last year was he was going to Blood and Glory, and him and I independently came to the exact same Nagash list. Mine for Dragonfall, his for Blood and Glory, and I was just pinging things off of him, and he goes, "This is exactly what I'm taking." So this is the second year in a row that Brad and I have the same list, for important October events. I took mine from his this time instead.
So this time you just cut out the middleman and just like take the list. We're gonna end up here anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, I look forward to talking to you again post Dragonfall. We'll see if you remain a single dragon or you ascend to double dragon, which everyone knows 2 dragons is better than 1.
Obviously.
So, but that'll bracket nicely. Just sort of like a year, like a kind of a weird year for Age of Sigmar. We've had a ton of releases, just a boatload of releases. Games Workshop has, for the most part, stayed true to their word. They said one for every GA, 1 tome for every GA, and they've released more than 1. Because Chaos got Blades of Khorne and Slanesh in the same year.
Yep, and Skaven.
Yeah, and Skaven. We're looking to get Destruction. We're gonna get triple tomes for Disruption if Gloomspite Gits came out. I think January, February abouts.
Yep, January. Yep.
So now you've got Orcs, the War Clans, and Mod Tribes is on the horizon. Like, way to go, GW! But it also has meant, like, man, all of the armies you know, the cloud, the sky's the limit. I can play what I feel like. But you're kind of like, after what GHB did to poor, undeserving Nagash, just kind of looking around for like the Death Army. Yeah, you could go all in on Night Hunt, but then you're just kind of playing Destruction the way that army plays. It's a little gambly. It's not the methodical, precise army. And then we see the OBR teasers. Now we've seen some OBR rules. I think it's going to be a good year going forward.
Yeah, it's
Year isn't over.
Yeah, year isn't over, but the November I think is going to be Sisters of Battle, and then December. Now, obviously, Brad knows more than we do, and December is usually just big boxes and getting you to spend your Christmas money on both sides of the holiday.
Right.
But
right,
we could easily have 4 books between the end of the year and Adepticon. Easily.
And that's just going to continue to dilute the meta, like more people playing more stuff, picking up. I mean, obviously, like you always have like the cream rises to the top, right? Slaanesh certainly cream in the most recent months. Earlier on, it was like pre-nerf Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven. And by the way, I think that they can actually roll back some of the Flesh Eater Courts nerf. if I'm going to get real hot take, but maybe that's my death love speaking. The hitting command points was kind of already enough in my mind, and then they kind of continued to go with it, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like? Obviously, Ossiarch, Bone Reapers, boom, death. But like, I personally didn't. Night Haunt. Ooh, I'm happy. Another death faction. I'll always be happy for another death faction because it means, I feel a certain kinship to death players. I'm happy if they get stuff they like. But, like, it wasn't my army. It wasn't for me. Then I see Bone Reapers. Boom, I'm in. What was it for you? Because you didn't, like, really go ham on Night Haunt either. You had your Grimghast Reapers, but you stuck with Nagash.
Yeah, I bought some Night Haunt models. I bought, 40 Chainrasps and 30 Grimghast Reapers, and I split a bunch of the boxes that for Soul Wars. I didn't buy more Night Haunts until Brad went 4-1 with 40 Bladegeist Revenants, and then I bought 40 Bladegeist Revenants, and I picked up Kyle's Night Haunt that he was offloading, so I've got another 30 Grimghast Reapers and another 90 Chainrasps, and all the heroes and all that.
Yeah.
So I thought it was cool, but in our little group, I try and let people have their thing, and we had a couple people that were going into Night Haunt, and I was like, well, that's cool. I'm not super into this, and I don't necessarily see this pushing past what I was really enjoying with Nagash and being competitive with it. So it just kind of kept it to the side.
Yes, you would. I mean, at the list you were kind of running with Nagash, you would have been essentially running what you had been doing sort of with Nagash, but minus Nagash and plus like 60 bodies and woo, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what the final iteration was, it was Nagash, Necromancer, Lord Executioner, 30 Grimghast Reapers, 40 Skeletons, and 2x10 Chainrasps, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that, and Portal and Geminids and 1890, so that I had all the extra command points I'd ever need. Right.
Now, of course, they've like messed with command points, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Casino Ghosts, roll those 10s. Well, that's exactly it. You're playing the slot machines, Casino Ghosts, and that's why I call them kind of like the destruction death army, because it's very much that like gamble payoff style play. But it's a fun play style, and that's where I'm not ready to like ring the bell on Night Hunt either. Even after the Drakfoot rule, which as soon as the FAQ came down that said it didn't work on Ethereal Amulet, I just kind of like I sighed and wept a small amount for Night Hunt, because you'd think that the army for hunting big monsters, would know about Ethereal Amulet on the big monster, and so like this rule seems like it's supposed to target, and then it's like, no, actually it's really mostly for Night Hunt, and you're like, sorry boys. But even so, it's one army out of like 30. Dodge the one army. If they're going the shooting route, congratulations, you can stash your money pieces off the board. Like, I'm not ready to put the nail in the coffin on Night Hunt just yet, but I find myself, anytime I think about playing them, I go, Ghost Art for me, and the thing that I would do with them, I'd rather do with another army. And one of the things that I think would make Night Hunt super competitive is you do have quality. You're a quality Horde army, right? The high, relatively so, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably running 100, 120 ghosts if you really fucking feel like it, and yeah. And I'm like, man, I pushed around 100 skeletons already. I don't want to push around 100 ghosts that I like less than awesome skeletons. And boom, OBR. They're saying they're elite. By all accounts, from the rules people talking, everything we've seen, they're saying, hey, this is gonna be elite this is gonna be elite death, and I am so there for that. So I also feel like you're locked back in on OBR. Is there like one thing that pulls you into it? Is it just Catacross? Is it?
First off, his name is Besticross.
Besticross.
Right. Use the appropriate nickname. There is just, and like, I'm not a super narrative lore player in Age of Sigmar. Like, I love the lore that goes in and around it, but I love Catacross.
Yeah. His lore that they were like, he was cool already just on like his speech alone. Like the speech was awesome, where he's just like, there's sort of that like, he's a man of purpose, he's a man of action, and like there's no real malice, he just has to do it. But also there's a little bit of malice, and that just makes this fun little villain. And so like you're in on that, and then you see the model, and you're just like, this guy is the boss fight. Like you're just like, this is, and then they talk about his rules at Nova, and you're like, he has rules to be a boss fight. Like it's just so like it takes that esoteric, fluffy narrative thing, and then like no, really, this is rules on the table, and that's where I personally really like get into a model or an army or something like that, is when the rules on the table actually reflect the lore. And then they went, and I felt like they doubled down when they were talking about him today on Stormcast, where they're like, oh yeah, like Nagash was reconquering like Shyish and stuff, as he is wont to do, and he was doing it in the standard way by just drowning the world in skeletons. And like actually this like Orpheon Catacross dude was sort of like putting up a fight. And he knew, like, Catacross knew he was going to lose the fight, and he just kills his way to Nagash's doorstep and asks for a job. And Nagash just like checks his resume, and he's like, oh yeah, I see you're right here. It says badass in your resume. Professional badass and taker of names. Yeah, here you go. Have a job. Like, hires him on the spot. And I thought that was just really hammering home how awesome this dude is.
He's just so cool. It's...
Yeah.
Man, it was like in our like in the chat that you and I have been going on for what feels like an eternity, where we just type in all caps at each other. I can't remember what specifically it was in Stormcast where I texted you and just said, "Put me on the mural as Catacross. I'm here for all of this."
Yeah. Yeah, so the mural he's referring to is we talk about a mural for like the death players from like the Midwest or Wisconsin, and doing a mural of like each of the people who really are in on their on the death armies, having like a, you know, like Stone Monk do a mural of them, and we're like, okay, you know, who's Nagash, who's, you know, like, you know, Kyle's probably Archon because he's a gigantic Archon honk. I mean, you gotta have Andrea on Flesh Eater Courts because she was playing them even when they were bad, you know, like that loyalty was really there. And it's like,
do
okay.
Do you mean Tanya?
I'm sorry, Tanya. I'm sorry. Yeah, Tanya. My bad. Yeah, Tanya. And it's like, well, but who would Nagash be? I'm like, you can be Nagash. I'll just be like a random necromancer. And you're like, nah, now it's Catacross. I'm like, cool. I guess we'll have to settle for being Nagash in the mural.
Well, I think you're gonna have to fight Brad for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but no. Here's the thing: is he could be Nagash and I'll be Nagash, and like.
So you'll be like the little clown.
Yeah, I'll be like the little like clown one. It'll be perfect. See, I've already thought ahead. um, yeah. So like OBR now, and I'm not like I like narrative as a framing. There's a reason we play Warhammer instead of a different game, right? Like I think War Machine or whatever your other minis game could be. I think one of the main reasons you play Warhammer Age of Sigmar is one, the sculpts. They look better. And two, that like framing or framework around it, like the lore, the fluff, it flavors it a certain way. And I think that's part of it. And this is where like so far, Games Workshop is just they're batting 1,000 for me on checking all the boxes between, making an army that like fits that framework of what are the mortal realms. This isn't just skeletons. These are like super skeletons in the same vein that KO maybe go too far and too weird by being sky pirates and fish elves with IDK go a little bit too far. That's what they've done here is they've gone whole hog. And like they were even talking about how like they drew a map because we haven't seen a Shyish map. And so they're talking about how like they have this like Ocean Empire map now filled in the tome, and I'm like, man, you guys are really going in on this. Isn't just like a concept army, where it's just like, oh, like we have this concept for like skull constructs. Like, yeah, that's pretty fucking sweet. But no, you don't understand. We have this concept for skull constructs, and then they just kept going and they kept going, just cranking it up to 11 at every step. And they talk about how like they have their own language, that they're like this dark-sided evil, like lawful good, like you got like lawful good. They're like lawful evil basically, so like they're very much like, oh, you didn't pay your taxes. I guess it says right here in the rule book we have to murder you all forever. Like it just
Whoopsies.
Yep. Oh, sorry. And like talks about like culture and intelligence, and they really in the early teasers are like these are not mere automata. They really were early in telling you, like, these are thinking skeletons. And you're like, okay, cool, you've told me that. And now the rules that we see today tie it back again together. They're like, no, you really are thinking skeletons. Every unit has a hero in it, and the hero projects command abilities. And you're just like, huh? Like, so they're... is
check
chat...
out the tweet Brad sent you.
Is chat getting at you?
No, just... When I get to talking, check out.
I see it. Twitter. I see. Yeah. Thank you. Is that fucking Manfred? Don't make me Manfred. That's an insult. Yeah, but you have you have this like rules where it's like unit leaders actually like leading and stuff like that, making like the hard decisions. They mentioned shield wall. I'm sure we're gonna see some different mechanics. You might have like a combat steroid on the unit leader. And actually, without being, I can actually be specific about this. Deathless Warriors, right? So a 6-up death save. This isn't foreign territory to any of the death factions. But what's interesting about this is rather than having it attached on your heroes or generals, your Hekatos, which is your like sort of unit champion, is going to be able to project this buff. So you're going to get your death save. You don't need to have your Necromancer babysit that like 1 unit of 10 block that you're keeping on a back objective now. Like then it goes on from there with like the ranks Unbroken. Now, you said on Twitter like one of the best things about Nagash has always kind of been his command ability. A lot of people are like, oh, the spells. Yes, absolutely, those are great. But like making his whole army shock immune and rerolling 1s and 1s, once to hit 1s on armor saves, was like low-key the best thing I think he was doing for that army. Because you could build your own Nagash with Archon, for about the same points with the Sacrament build. You could basically like build your own Archon, have some of the power spread around with Necromancers casting double spells, add a bonus. Like you could do that. So like what Nagash was really doing that you couldn't do with Archon, obviously Hand of Dust, right? But it was actually that command ability. And so like here you have like do not take battle shock tests. And I also, in true RantCast fashion, I gotta go off this. I gotta go down a separate tertiary rabbit hole here. This is the only thing I've seen people complaining about on the internet so far. there isn't something, looking at Ossiarch Bone Reapers, you look at the abilities they've teased, you look at the models, like, okay, some of the models aren't for some people, whatever. But the only thing I've seen them like, oh, that's dumb, is ranks Unbroken by Descent. But that, I feel like, is... Go ahead. You said, look like you got something to say there.
Yeah, it feels like an absurd thing to be upset about in the current state of affairs. With Slaanesh, people aren't even playing... Forget the fact that they're Battle Shock 10, or they're Bravery 10, and you have 1 million command points. The army, you're running 6 heroes. You don't take Battle Shock tests. With Skaven, you just hang out by the bell, or you have, 20 of the command points necessary to make your whole army immune to Battle Shock, on top of your bravery being better. Like, there's just already stuff that makes it that way. They're going to be Bravery 10 anyways. They're already relatively durable. You have to pull off 5, potentially, to even be doing anything to begin with, so have fun.
Yeah.
This is just cutting out the middleman.
Yes, and like I said, this is the only thing. People saw saw the Deathless Warriors, whatever, they expected it. They saw that the Hekatos was projecting these buffs. It's 6 inches, it means it's just kind of to the unit. Or if you murder the unit and you just have your Hekatos retreat over and like buff another unit so you can like, galaxy brain some people with some tricks. But like, this is the only thing I've seen negatively, and I feel like the core issue isn't that they're mad at this ability. They're just mad at Battle Shock kind of dissipating from the game, I think, is really... And so whatever iteration of, like, Battle Shock doesn't even mean anything anymore, they're just going to get mad at that every time, no matter what. So I think the read in general, if we just put that in the little bubble of people are mad about Battle Shock tests in general, so far, I joked about being how this is turning me into an 80s like cartoon villain, or like I'm turning on my heal mode a little bit, but like I don't see anything to make you the heal just yet. What's your... I guess you're just... We don't have a ton to go on. There could be every skeleton attacks 3 times. Like, that rule could come down the pipe. Who the hell knows? 1 command point. Yeah, every skeleton attacks 3 times, and everyone can get mad about that. But for now, what's your read on the abilities?
Like, the ability of the save being within 6 inches, and the unit hero and the unit champion can project it, great. That's the first thing in this that tells us that this is an honest-to-goodness commitment to it being an elite fighting force and not being, we'll call it monster-heavy, like Flesh Eater Courts was. 2, the Unbroken by Descent is the first time we've actually seen a mechanic that says truly outright that the army does not care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big difference. Because before, you're relying on this volume of command abilities or being near... this other specific unit, and maybe the bubble is still relatively large, and that's fine, the 12-inch bubble on a Maw Crusher with the Golden Tooth. Well, but that's still a 460-point commitment to a model, and the commitment of an artifact, which is something that is exceedingly rare and valuable.
Yeah.
So this is the first time we're seeing something where it's going to be hard to test to begin with, but also it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So, cool. That's great. And then you start getting into some of the other mechanics that article showed off, which is what's the discipline points. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So they're talking about the discipline points, or the the tactical genius her points, right? Like the discipline points that are essentially. And they're basically kind of replacing command abilities for this army, or it's like an aside to command abilities, maybe. It says rather than generate command points, you have relentless discipline points. So is every 1 command point going to turn into like an amount of relentless discipline points? I guess that remains to be seen. But then from there, you use the relentless discipline points. Your heroes and like War Scroll battalions, of course, they generate some. And then it says units generate them themselves on a 6. So like units are just like, they're like your own little units are farms too, which might lean you in towards like MSU being kind of awesome again, right? Like if you are these elite maybe like 10 blocks of these Mortek guards can actually be like take-all-comer type switch hitters with their command abilities, you get incentivized to have like 3 units of 10 instead of like a big block of 30.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and all they show us so far is Shield Wall. They very well could have 2 variants on the scroll for choices in the discipline points, right? It could be one is Shield Wall and the other one is, you know, something a little more aggressive, where they get some benefits on the attack rolls, rerolls to hit, for instance, but they may suffer some penalty elsewhere. One of the things that you brought up in our text today that I felt was really poignant was that this army forces the player of it to make a lot of decisions. So the skill floor is going to be really high, but the ceiling is going to be even higher.
right.
Because what's going to happen is the unpracticed and the genuinely bad are going to pick it up and play and just make continuously bad decisions, where a practiced and a capable player in that frequent decision-making process is going to continue to make good decisions, which will end up in kind of a more blue deck style endgame, where bad choice follows bad choice follows bad choice.
Well, it's going to spiral.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah, a game can spiral away from you. I mean, you've got an element of resource management too, and so if you're mismanaging your resource, like, which the army is, it seems to be like just kind of about that. I mean, even what Death Rider Wedge, it says is a command ability when a friendly Cavalos Death Riders, it gets you Juggernaut Mortals. You know, is now the time to use the Juggernaut Mortals, because that's a resource. It's not just as is. You're going to be making decisions. Every time you're making a decision, you can make a bad decision. And if you make bad decisions, those tend to pile up a little bit, you know? And so that's that spiral you're just talking about. But yeah, go ahead and finish it off.
Yeah, and this is going to be one of those armies that put in the hands of capable players is going to create very difficult games, at least from what we've seen, for folks who aren't ready for it. Is it entirely possible that the point and click goodness of Slaanesh and Flesh Eater Courts can overcome it? Yeah, of course. That's absolutely a reality of this situation. But it could also be one of the situations where, if you and I are of equal talent level, the fact that I have more opportunities to make these decisions to bend but not break and eventually come over the top is an interesting one.
Right. So, I mean, the possibility exists that everything's aggressively costed, and there's some command abilities that really push this into an absurd. But on its face value, I think what you're getting is a real kind of a finesse army. Like, you're elite, so elite armies tend to get punished for like their mistakes on the board a little bit more than horde armies that can compensate in deployment by stringing out some bodies, by contesting objectives a little bit better. But you're also going to see that, like you said, that ceiling where you've got an army with like all of the tools in the satchel, possibly. That, like, if you pick the right tool for the job in the right situation, if you play the table correctly, you might have just this army that can get out of whatever situation it finds itself pinned in, which to me is a awesome prospect. Rewarding decisions on the table happens in Age of Sigmar. Seeing an army that's its design, like, philosophy, just makes me giddy with possibility.
It's going to be really exciting, especially when we get into the sub-factions of the different, I don't know what the right term is, the temples, the...
Boneclaves is what we're calling it right now.
When you get into the specifics of the Boneclaves, what they were talking about on Stormcast was how you can dig into a specific type of play with like the type of models, you know, the Knights, the Constructs, and the Mortek Guard. And I think that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, because obviously there's a penalty in playing heavily into any one of those. On the surface, this looks like one of the things where if you take a solid balance on unit selection where you can do a lot of different things and fight in the right places, I think that's on the surface the way to go. Obviously, I need to see the book to make that decision, but if every unit has some of that same versatility that the Stalkers and Mortrek Guard do, then you're just going to be accepting the fact that you're going to have a specific hard counter, but on the other side of it, you're going to do exceedingly well in other matchups.
Right, and there's a little bit of that, like, that Taylor built, which I think is the best case scenario for Boneclaves and what they've attempted to do with Enclaves, which is to sort of push an army into either into your own playstyle, or counter builds for metas. You know, like, you're giving it again. It's tools. These are tools that help help tailor make your army, and I'm looking forward to just, you know, seeing which one speaks to me first and which one sparks that theory craft. Like, okay, I see what this can do. You know, like. You know, and then whereas another player might like really be in on the theme or the narrative or whatever, and so like I want to be actually skeleton, so I'm gonna play the ones that freaking explode. Like, okay, like, yeah, all right, dude, like the crematorians or whatever, like, cool. You know, that stuff is just more, but like on the table, I think that's what really entices me. Like, if you do have a weakness, maybe you can find one of these, because we're slow. I mean, I'm seeing 4-inch movement, 6-inch movement. Like we're slow again, so we have that problem for death still lingering around a little bit. I mean, they're fucking sweet ass cavalry, and maybe we'll have some teleports and shit, because we do have a tactical genius at the helm, right?
Right. So that's one of the things that they were talking about on Stormcast and in the designer's preview, was that Catacross has these really different abilities. It could be that he's going to have, you know, like an just like reposition type abilities where you can do, for spending of all of the points, right? You can do the different movings arounds of the units to be in a better position at a moment's notice.
Yeah, he's got like the actual chess castle move where like two units swap places and you're like, like, and then he's just like, you mad, like, and he just like looks over like pathetic and he just insults you. Like, yeah, no, like, and I think that Colorado AOS, like, they might get movement shenanigans, and I think honestly they should. I just think that it's a requisite for a good army is to have some movement shenanigan. It doesn't need to be the best movement shenanigans. You don't need to pair it with infinite teleport, but like add movement shenanigan, whether it's in the form of like good cavalry, Necropolis Stalkers. It says Stalkers, so my brain is just, the wheels are spinning on like what they could possibly do. Do they get an outflank type deployment? You know, do they have do they have a you know, they like a just nothing personnel kid and they can teleport behind you outside of 9 inches? You know, like, yeah, like, so things like that. Is it all hinged to your resources? I'm cool with that. Spend the resources to do the awesome shit, and then you have to manage your resources, because you're always trading the ability to do awesome shit with the ability to bunker down, the ability to go aggressive, you know, the ability to do mortal wounds, whatever the trade-off may be. So yeah, castling in AOS, there you go. Like, he's got a guy called the Spy Master. You know, like that's how they referred to him. What could a Spy Master's ability be? I mean, this is all wild speculation, but they've shown me enough with the design that is on display that they've thought about it, that they are thinking about this. They're coming at it from that like resources tactician sort of thing. And like this quadrarch, this quadrarch aspects thing, where you have a war scroll here on the Necropolis Stalkers, and points are going to tell if this is a great unit or bad. They could be Bulgors or they could be Enlightened, right? Like, which one are we getting?
Please be Enlightened.
Right. So, like, but I see a profile that does have a sweet spot for points where I'm like, this is a great unit, I'm taking it. It's not like on the war scroll it looks just bad and like I would never take this. And part of that is this quadrarch aspects thing, Blade Strike aspect, reroll hits. Reroll hits makes 3 attacks at 4s and 3s, rend 2, damage 2 look pretty spicy. You know?
Yep.
That gets around the like Bulgor, you've got 3 attacks or 2 attacks per model at 4s, and you're just like, awesome. You know, it's like the swingiest. Yeah. And so you have stuff like that. You have the rerolling wounds, you have the rerolling saves, so they you know, if like now you need to gut out the fight at the end. Like, maybe now you just, like, okay, swinging for the fences, I tried that, but no, now I just need to hold. Now I just need to hold for a little bit with this unit. Boom, time to, like, reroll some saves and stuff. So I really improving the Ren characteristic. Are you kidding me?
And the damage. If it was just rend on one and damage on one, both of those would be good alone.
Mm-hmm.
You get it both on one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's spicy. Oh, Ren 3, that basically turns it into mortal wounds against most units. Like, oh man, these guys are going to be can openers.
Yeah, on that 5 attack, 3x3s, Ren, Ren's making it Ren 2 damage to. That's pretty good.
Yeah. 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 Oh man, it's just like you look at these guys, and so like again, stalkers. I hope they get some sort of outflank, or Catacross has some sort of redeploy, some sort of trick. So you got to have a movement shenanigans, because right now we have a bunch of melee foot sloggers and cavalry.
But yeah, then his war scroll could be like solid 2 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. That's
well, the Stormcast, they were like, this is some of Jervis Johnson's like finest war scroll mastery or something like that. I can't remember the exact description, but I just like I heard the description, and it like I got an image in my mind of Nagash actually weaving magical energies into the war scroll for how awesome it is. So Catacross is best to go, speaking of our guy here. And then the other thing they mentioned about, here's the mini boss fight thing. I'd like to think we could go to the tape on how early I was saying that. So he's a mini boss fight, but they also mentioned, like, so your Azar Harvesters are gonna recycle fallen units, so we're probably gonna have a bit of a summon mechanic, right? Like,
I am very interested in seeing how that mechanic works. That is one of the things that could really tip this up over the edge. And while you are elite, you end up with long-term durability, aside from what's built in terms of the saves and the rerolls.
Right. And so like you're not quite playing with 3,000 points like the way Flesh Eater Courts was, where you just boom all the command points, and now suddenly I'm playing with 3,000 points against 2,000 points. But you're stretching out your 2,000 points to where you're literally recycling some of those points, right? So it's not quite the, like, boom, suddenly you're playing a 3,000 point army. It's more of the, like, that long, slow burn for summoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that it says recycles enemy units too, though. So this is where whatever the resource management is, whatever the numbers come down on, that's going to decide whether this is like a really cool, ingenious mechanic, a totally disposable throwaway, it's barely worth considering, or on the way far side of the spectrum is like how angry people are at depravity, right? Like that would be
if it ends up being like a 400 point commitment to just kind of a semi-gimmick where it happens infrequently, or you're never going to get that 400 point return, then it's just not worth it. You're always going to be better off in that case just taking 400 points worth of units and letting that be what it is. So, and we'll see, right?
Yeah, we just have to see on this one. I think there's some room for finesse and it to be just as advertised, pretty great. Where a lot of the feels bad comes from with Colorado here in chat. He's like, or the second they get a Slanesh mechanic where they recycle enemy units, you start pushing into broken territory. That's if it goes too far. And that's the thing, is like people don't like that feeling of playing their 2,000 point army against a 3,000 point army. And I think that's where like the feelsy bads comes in somewhat, unless everyone's playing with 3,000 point armies and then it's fixed. But I like that they're showing a mind toward compensating for eliteness. The fact that they said out loud on Stormcast, like, one of I think the exact phrasing was, an Achilles heel of the army is that it's elite, was what the phrasing was. That. And I'm like, we've all, I think every player who plays Age of Sigmar knows it's an objective-based game. Being elite can be a big downside, especially in the heyday of like Daughters of Cain, when they were really like that premium elite, like felt like an elite army on the war scrolls, but then they had a horde amount of bodies. Like that initial like shell shock of going, oh crap, they have like 90 elves and they can just string out and control the board. Oh yeah, and by the way, they slaughter you like insanely well too, just charging. So you have that early thing there. But but people sort of learned that like Elite was basically Beast Claw Raiders being on the far side of the spectrum for Elite, where you can just like body up and beat them on objectives in certain scenarios, unless you're a perennial contender
unless you're a Warhammer master.
Yeah, unless you're a
Warhammer, and you just pick up a Beast Claw army, for funsies, once every 2 years, and place in the top percentages with clearly something terrible.
Right. Shots fired against BCR players who can't go 3-2.
Right. Well, 3-2 with armies that they've played before. I didn't even know the rules really until the week before Meltdown. Yeah. So
right. Right.
Thanks, Brad.
Oh, this feels like an inside story. What's the one Goblin Fanatic?
So my first entry into Age of Sigmar tournaments was Adepticon 2017. I had signed up for the Vanguard, I had signed up for doubles, and I had signed up for the championships. And we drew Domus and Brad in round 2, Dave and I. And Dave was playing Brass Stampede, and I was playing Frostword on Stonehorn with Battle Brew, 2 Mournfang, and a Battle Line Thunder Tusk. And we got it was one of the craziest missions I've ever played. And it was just crazy deployments, all this and that. And Dave went to go distract Domus, as was clearly our plan, which left just Brad and I to get into this duel of setups. And, I felt like I was in a really strong position. And Brad had a unit of, I believe it was 3 Fanatics, and he had them set up in this unit, and I was going to get the charge off on his Stonehorn before he got to Battle Brew up and do all that stuff. And once that happens, that's it. Like, yeah. I'm up, 500 points or whatever it was, and I'm going to get to roam around the board unmolested.
Oh yeah, this is what we call the monster truck Stonehorn. When you get to just drive around, just crashing over everything. This happens every now. It still happens in Age of Sigmar. It's one of the sweetest feelings, and I've only experienced it like proximately, but it's still one of the coolest things when you're like, I play doubles with Joe or Haywo a lot, and we call it the Haywo special. He just runs up the right side of the table, takes a left, and just runs along the back line. And it wins us a surprising amount of games, because when the Stonehorn works, the Stonehorn does work. So you're in the middle of hitting the sweet spot of the sweet science of the Stonehorn.
Right. So Brad he pops this Fanatic out, and it's a 10-inch charge. There's not re-rolls, it's just a straight 10-inch roll to pin my Stonehorn. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, whatever, what are the odds are, 25% roughly that this Fanatic is going to do it? because I'm like, I know I'm going to make this charge, and I'm going to ruin that Stonehorn. And he rolls an 11. Pins my Stonehorn in. And they get the full point victory, and they go on to play a team that was somehow also at full points that they steamrolled. Oh. And both Domus and Brad got a hammer for it. So a single Fanatic was the first thing that got in the way for me getting a golden hammer. And it hurts.
It hurts. Yeah, if you're thinking about coming to like Midwest tournaments, like Adepticon is great, but Adepticon's like a spectacle. I think it's like it's sort of like this more almost a spectacle, but it's just a tournament. I think Midwest Meltdown is one of those like great showcases of what Midwest tournaments are kind of about. Like it's got that like friendly camaraderie vibe, but then you also have like basically the biggest field you're gonna get out in the Midwest, short of Adepticon itself. So it's probably, if you're looking for just like that big event, and I mean that would be a good alternative to like doing Adepticon, or you do Brew City coming up next year.
There you go.
I'm trying to throw you a softball here to like.
Yeah.
Like...
So this year, Brew City Brawl, April 24th through 26th. The gaming is on the 25th and 26th. You don't have to be there the 24th if you don't want to. And
good night, Brad. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, and it's going to be 2,500 points, 5 rounds. And the thing that I really like out of Warhammer is when people seek unique solutions in their lists and in their play styles. So I try to write a pack that lets people know that it's okay, and they are rewarded for doing so.
Right.
So there will always be the tournament winner, and they'll have tooled up and dialed up stuff. And consistently, the last 2 years is tables 1 through 5 are just the punch you in the face, super absurd tables where everybody's playing to win. And then the bottom couple of tables are what they were going to be. But then that middle 80%, roughly, is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
People with weird lists, having a good time, knowing that it can be okay. And for instance, last year I had an award where we call it the Big Three because I'm a basketball fan and the NBA starts tonight. And
absolutely. It's back, baby.
So this was a nod to the Miami Heat's Big Three, or the Celtics, depending on who you think popularized it. Up to you. It was the Heat. And
shots fired.
Right. And you had to have 3 heroes and only 3 heroes as your leader slots. 2 of which had to be unique, and 2 of which had to be behemoths. And that was it. Whoever placed the highest with that sort of absurdity was the person who won that award.
Right.
And so this year, I'm not going to do the Big Three because it's 2,500 points. I'm doing the Monstars. So it's 5 heroes, all of which must be behemoths.
Nice. Oh man, I'm here for that.
As a nod to Space Jam and Space Jam 2, can I get an award for bringing the most individual War Scrolls? It's one of the things on my list of consideration. I haven't hammered out everything that the pack is going to be. I have a lot of awards that are in that maybe column.
Yeah.
And I really want people to just look at these things and just go, I'm not here to win. I was never here to win, but that's the thing that I want.
Yeah.
What if an army book doesn't come out with 5 behemoths the week before? Nothing I can do for you.
Yeah. Yeah, then he can't make his army 1 week beforehand and bring it to the event. No, so I mean Midwest Meltdown and just a little bit earlier, Andrew Yells here. He was on RantCast 4 there. We were talking about chess and Warhammer. He says his favorite is PACA. I haven't been yet, but PACA is the most FOMO I have ever felt for an Age of Sigmar event. So like that's the fear of missing out. Like that was the one where like I'm like, oh no guys, I can't quite make PACA. I kind of backed out like last minute. Winter is always weird for me, and like then I just saw on Twitter all of the people having fun, and then suddenly there was like a window pane between me and my Twitter screen, and it was like raining on this side of it, and I'm just like my hands are up on it. So PACA, I'm looking forward to this year. I'm gonna go. This is the last year of PACA. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yes. Last year.
Yes. Allegedly. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm signed up. I'm going there. That's actually my target number for having my OBR done. So I'm.
Oh, you and me both, baby. We're gonna have a Besticros off.
Yeah, Besticros off. I figure if I bring Nagash and Besticros, I just have to bring like 3 units of Skeleton Boys, and we're good to go. Yeah. So PACA is my I'm setting that as my kind of ambitious, because I am a slower hobbyist. I'm setting that as kind of my ambitious goal to get OBR done, and that'll be their debut. And if not, I'll fall back to something else. No. There's no if. OBR will be debuting at PACA for me.
There you go. That's the mindset of a winner.
There we go. Yeah. So and I'm coming for Best Death this time. No, I won't have the reps by then. I don't
think they do best.
They probably don't do that stuff like that. I don't know. I have no idea. I just know that there's like beer hoisting for tiebreakers, and it's really club-like, mindful of clubs and stuff. Like, so I'm looking forward to it for a lot of that. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I mean, you were talking about, I think it was Colorado was talking about making an AOS event out here. I don't know if you can really go wrong picking any of our like sort of hallmark tournaments. You're going to get something a little bit different at every one because every TO's got a little bit of a different like sway
to it.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. I mean, you're the mad scientist when it comes to list building, so I think you favor some like mad science in your list that you see at your tournament. You've got Herner for like the super narrative like table like he's very like narrative focused, but it's all about the tables themselves. And then you got Domus who really loves the hobby. He just finds ways to get extra hobby, like, it's a fan vote for this and judgment for that, and stuff like that. He even said just dismissively, like, yeah, here's the people who won the trophies for winning things. Here's what I care about, the hobby and sports. So you've got like a lot of different flavor. I really liked Brew City this last year. As I'm a little bit of a homer, though. I'm shamelessly a homer, rocking my Milwaukee Bucks cap and Mean Mug version 1 shirt. I have 2 Mean Mug shirts for Giannis Antetokounmpo. A bit of a homer, so it was like my backyard. But it was like if I could hand pick people to go to a tournament, I think everyone was in that room. Give or take like about 5 people that I'm not super familiar with or that weren't there for whatever RL reason. But it was just like it was the top tables were tough as nails, people there to win. The bottom tables are what bottom tables always are. And then that middle, I was actually on table 5 going in on the last round, so I was like right there against was it Mark Tobin? I confused. Yeah, it was
Tobin Prime. Yep.
Yeah, Tobin. I was against Tobin Prime and his like tooled up Sylvaneth list, which is exactly really well positioned against Nagash. He was Winterleaf, which was at the time super casty heavy, and so we just had like a caster off, and whoever resolves their spells wins. And he resolved more than I did. So, but a very very chess style game, playing for podium and that. No, I still podiumed that. I got 10. Woo! Well, not podium, but I was played into the top 10 there, which is decent for me.
Yeah, Tristan, I've let other people know that if anybody wants to sponsor any awards, at least locally and in my circles, that they are more than welcome to do so on their own if it doesn't make it into my cut. I am more than happy to do that.
Ooh, I like the Highlander trophy, sponsored by Tomb Dad Tristan. Yeah, so I kind of like buried the lead a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I'm an obvious homer, but it's not. I can also suspend my subjectivity to say that, objectively speaking, like Midwest tournaments are they're just awesome. So if you're, I mean, I've even had conversations with Martin Orlando about like East Coast tournaments versus this, and he's just like kind of, we've had some pretty in-depth conversations about it and why we think it's the way it is and stuff, but. It's pretty cool. It's worth making the trip out if you can. Just find one that lines up with your schedule, and you almost can't go wrong.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting back to these bony boys, we kind of talked a little bit about the elite, and I had a sort of a show me moment. When Nova happened, they were on 25s, and I had 2 simultaneous reactions to the Mortek guard being on 25s. My initial reaction was, oh shit, they're not going to make me bring 80 of these guys again, are they? It was like my initial reaction. Because like,
go
ahead.
Yeah, because my initial order to mini stop was for 8 boxes of them. So.
Yeah, and now we found out they're coming in boxes of 20. Was that what the bits highlight said? It's going to be boxes of 20 for those guys?
I must have missed that because I just figured that it's 10.
10. I figured it's yeah. So anyway, it's yeah. So like anyway, like I saw them on 25s at Nova, and I'm just like, oh crap, not this again. But then like a lot of the release stuff they've done since then has been like, no, you're elite. Here's rules that are leaning into the eliteness. Here's all this stuff. And then my second reaction was, good. They know 25s are way better than 32s. for attacking with 2 ranks. So they've kind of redeemed themselves a little bit in not redeemed. The one fear I had was that you were telling me it's an elite army, and then you kind of miss the mark, and the best way to run it ends up just being 100 more tech guard, which might be an option, you know?
Yeah, I mean there is going to be a Boneclave that revolves around them.
Yeah, you have the anti-casting ones, the null, it's null something or other. I can't remember the other.
Yeah, part. the whatever Arcan's group is.
Yeah, Arcan's group, where they're essentially like they're gonna have a 5-up anti-magic save or something crazy like that. Like you've got the prehistoric ones, which are made from dinosaur bones that have an army-wide 3 +1 to save, and so you're on 3-ups instead of 4-ups. Now you added that shield.
And that on the Stalkers is gonna be. That's going to be silly. That's what that's going to be.
Yeah. They mentioned a cavalry-based one. They talk about the Gur ones, which are they're like all about being like regal and awesome, but they have a berserker mode. When you lose enough models, they just go fucking crazy town. So like that could be pretty sweet. That's another way of like maintaining your lethality as you pull models off the board, which is always a really cool position to be in. Do you think they're going to do one for every mortal realm? Because that seems like excessive to me.
And I'm actually surprised that there was any outside of Shaiish.
Yeah.
And just from what they were is they're the tax collectors. Like I can see them venturing out into other realms to do that periodically, but it strikes me as odd that like they're from other realms.
Well, the way it was pitched is it's not so much that they are from other realms, it's that the bone tithed is from other realms. So like they're essentially industry. They're aggressive capitalism where bones are their money. And Catacross is a conqueror. That's like just his jam. And so I think it's more that they've like we've got like all these bones in Shaiish. Yeah, this is pretty fucking sweet. But you know who else has bones? Gur. And so like they go out and they conquer a little territory and they start to tithe about and collect taxes and stuff. So, and then like, if you happen to be made with this bone stuffs, it shows up. And there's actually an agency to it. They decided to make the bones out of this stuff. To make them that. Andrew. Take care. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, so like it's kind of cool, but like I didn't think I was just talking a couple days ago. I didn't think they were gonna go through and do one of each fucking realm, and like no, and now it's like I've seen 2. I've seen Gur.
We've seen 3. They're from Shaiish.
Shaiish, yeah, 3. Like yeah. I can't even begin to fathom that 8 Boneclaves.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get 8 Boneclaves. I think that's a little much.
Yeah.
I think that's Slanesh levels of excessive.
Ew. Yeah, I mean, Korn's got 4 for Slaughter Hosts or whatever. I don't even remember the number IDK has. You take one of them. Life would be a tough one to justify. Maybe they regen better. I mean, there's things with bones in the realm of life. And this isn't like D&D where negative energy and positive energy really fuck with each other. So light would be weird. Like you'd have essentially like lightsaber skeletons. And no one's ever gone to Azir, pretty much. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I thought was really funny in the Cities book is the Hurricanum. If the game is being played in the realm of Azir, you get bonuses. And I read that and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, wait a minute. There are no realm rules for that. What gives?
See, that's is foreshadowing maybe? Or like they pivoted in the design at some point. Right?
Or we're going to get that. Like with the Soul Wars and the Necroquake, that Nagash is going to make a full frontal assault on the gates of Azir.
See, that seems really aggressive for Nagash. Like
maybe the time is right. He's got his Bone Reapers and he's ready to do some business.
Ready to do business. That's right. But like, and then the thing is, like, even like Catacross is free. I thought there was this more elaborate thing for how Catacross was freed, because I think it was Malign Portent's
Forbidden Power.
Forbidden Power talked about like freeing someone, right? Like, was it Forbidden Power? They're talking about freeing someone, one of Nagash's old allies, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Well, it basically was like the Necroquake happened, and it knocked the Storm Vault like aside, and Catacross is just like, I have returned, and he just like, it basically emerged all angry.
I have business to tend to.
Yeah. People have not been paying their taxes sufficiently to my code. like you mentioned in chat, like, I'm not gonna know how to talk to you in reality anymore because like there's no caps lock key for like what has essentially become like bone, like which has essentially become Ossiarch Bone Reaper like water cooler talk. Like holding coffee mugs and just yelling at each other about how extreme being a Bone Reaper is.
Yeah, and it's actually not too dissimilar for like what I actually do for my job, where I'm all about compliance and making sure that rules are being met. And I just get to do that for fun with a character that is all about that.
So you like your, I think we kind of talked about this like, you know, off stream sometime. You actually like, I can't stand if my job was also my pastime. Like, I can't handle that. But you love being an engineer and stuff. Like, you're like, no, this is my fucking jam. Let's go.
Yeah, it's just the way my brain works. And I get to do something that I've loved doing since I was 12, 13 years old. And in high school, like, I had an engineering lab, and we had CNC machines and lathes, and we had CAD, and we had all the stuff that really got me into it. And like that's just where I learned that my brain thinks differently than a lot of people, and I'm all about that. So when I just get to be myself all the time, I'm super happy about it.
Man, this here, but you're on the subject here, so I'm going to bring it up now. This is more something I wanted to talk about on the next episode. You're supposed to be scheduled for, and we just kind of threw this one together because
whoopsies.
Was like, you know, like, you're a pretty hyper competitive player. I'd say you're one of the best in the Midwest, easily, and possibly the country. Like, you're a really good player, and you just see the game well. You know, they talk about like, insert favorite sportsman here, LeBron. You know, the greats just see the game well, right? LeBron James, Giannis. One of the things they talked about, one of the biggest steps he actually took wasn't his physicality. It was he just sees the game better. You know, like, that was one of the, you know, things that leads to his huge jump in assists. You know, 2 years ago, like, boom, he's just suddenly like his assists.
Yeah, he saw the players that were open and where things were moving, and that's always the thing that's been so fascinating about LeBron is at one point they had done a study of defenders' likelihoods and spaces and where you're supposed to be based on where the play was going, and they overlaid that super sim with a bunch of other players, and so this super sim ghost, there was only one player in the NBA who was beating the super sim ghost to the space preemptively, and it was LeBron, and that's because he was seeing all the pieces moving before like that last bit of gear teeth interlocked and set up the next thing.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with this. Is I think you have that, and maybe it's the engineering brain or whatever, but you see the game really well. You know.
Yeah, and I think the reason I do is because I truly believe that Age of Sigmar benefits those who can play multiple results simultaneously very well in the nature of the double turn. Like, that's the way I look at it, is the game enters like a tree. You know, you come up on the trunk of the tree, and as you move out towards the branches, those are all the different possibilities that could occur. And every turn roll is a branching mechanism, and there's just a series, you know, the series of branches after that, and it's about which of those last branches you end up on that you have to plan for.
Yeah.
And the better you can plan for those, the more of those branches are favorable results for you.
Yeah, and this is mitigating risk or mitigating chance. It plays into that as part of getting on the branch you want to go on, because you know I could end up here. But then also, like, next tier thinking is like, okay, I don't want to end up on this branch, but if I do, how do I get to that branch? From there. And once you start seeing the game in those ways, you've entered. The first tier is like, okay, I set my models down and I push them towards the center of the table and we fight. That's like the first thing, but then from there you're like, okay, well, what if I hold my models back? And you start to see those sort of branching plays. This ties into one of the things I think for kind of imposing your will on an opponent, which is make them make bad decisions. And you can do this a number of ways. Give them an abundance of bad decisions to make. Now, if they're a good player, they're going to pick the least bad. But if they're a moderate player or they're not thinking about that because they're offset from some of your mind games, you're going to get them to take the bad decision instead. And so, like, you can do stuff like that. But where I was actually going with this is I think you're a really cerebral player and you're a really great player. But I've also kind of noticed you have this passion toward certain armies. Like, you won't just... Like, obviously, you got Slaanesh and you played Flesh Eater Courts and you're going to play, like, the good stuff. But I didn't see you excited about, like, Flesh Eater Courts even. I'm like, this is death. I'm like I think you'd like...
Yeah, no, I didn't even want to play Flesh Eater Courts. The only reason I own a Flesh Eater Courts army was we were going to the ATC, and my team, because I was going to bring Nagash and Grimgas Reapers, and I was playing a build that I was calling Speedy Nagash, where like those Grimgas Reapers were just on the other side of the table. They pinned you in. My hope was that you'd kill them, and then I'd bring them back for more. And my team in the chat was just saying, look, we think that this is a good list, but you should just run the Gristlegore nonsense and just beat the living bejesus out of everybody that looks at you. And I was like, okay, well, let me figure out what I've got. And I had 40% of the army physically in terms of models, and so I just ordered the rest and painted it, and I was like, all right, I've got a Flesh Eater Courts army, and I do the thing that I always do, where I just fill out all of my options instead of just leaving it be as an army on the shelf and letting it exist that way. So, here I am with 120 ghouls and a bunch of monsters and 12 horrors and 12 flayers. Normal things to own. And
yeah. And it's not like, and that's the thing is, like, I didn't see you're like, okay, the aspiration wasn't like, I'm going to win best death, or it was just like, I'm going to crush people with this new thing. And now I talking to you about OBR, I see this like fucking fire, this passion. I'm like, when you take the thing you already love and you match it with that like will to dominate and destroy, like, I think you're going to be a dangerous man once. You're already dangerous, but I think you're gonna like. This is you going Super Saiyan. This is like next tier, Brendan.
I'm really hoping so. I would say 2019 has been marked for me by just kind of like a lot of half-hearted attempts at playing in the game. Like I really enjoy it. I really liked a lot of stuff, obviously, but at the end of 2018. I can count on just one hand the number of losses I had taken with my Nagash list, and one of them was to Colorado AOS at Adepticon Round 2, where he was debuting Daughters, really for the first time, and poof, I got my face pushed in. And then I lost at Meltdown with against Kyle's Sylvaneth because he rolled 2 unbelievable dispel attempts unbind attempts against Nagash that would have put him somewhere else. And like I'd lost like a weird random game somewhere else, but all of the games were becoming the same for me. I'd roll up to the table, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I know with extreme likelihood that I'm just going to win. And I was bored. So I started playing some different stuff and trying to keep my attention with that, and Flesh Eater Courts dominated my summer, and that was cool. And I saw Brad playing his Slaanesh at Meltdown, and I was like, well, that's kind of a cool army, and I played that at Circle City, and I'm gonna play that here at Dragonfall. But I mean, they're both going on the shelf. and Bone Reapers is going to be, and the other one is Maw Tribes, and that's coming out at the same time because that's the other army that I secretly love.
Well, that was like where you did a lot of your like, I mean, that old mixed destruction was like rife for mad science, right? Like, and that's where you kind of
yeah, and that was my first Age of Sigmar army. Was I really enjoyed playing in Warhammer Fantasy battles, and we didn't know what was going to happen after the end times, and I said, you know what, screw it, it doesn't matter. I don't care what's coming next. If it's a new edition, if it's a different game, I said I'm playing ogres. I bought the army book. I bought just a bunch of boys, and I was like, here we go. This is what we're doing. And then obviously we had the dark times of the pre-points, and I just rolled around playing ogres. My favorite games in Age of Sigmar were in that pre-points realm, playing Gutbusters, and so I'm excited for 2020 to be darn near exclusively Bone Reapers and Maw Tribes, and just flipping between the two over the course of the year, and not having to do much else.
That's a cool, like, I try to, like, I do that thing where I try to, like, lock in an army and I play it for long term. So I've been a little, like, lost post GHB 19, where, like, the thing I loved playing was, it was nostalgic for me to play Nagash because he was my favorite when I was a literal kid. Like, I'm in the 6th grade trying to build a Warhammer Fantasy Battle army prior to Vampire Counts being a book, and before that, and like, I'm like, Nagash's derpy little clown model or whatever. I didn't play him back then, and then I show up in Age of Sigmar, I'm like, holy shit, look at how majestic he is now. And I can play him, and I was just, like, blown away, and then I got, like, to play him, and then LON comes out, and then AOS 2.0 comes out, and then, like, he's just, like, I can't even hold all these lines, that meme happened where I'm just, like, starting to just have too many, like, essentially, like, strokes of good luck with the army, and just, like, where everything seems to be coming up my way, and then that GHB book happens, and I'm like, okay, well, I played Nagash, and I continue to play him for after that, but, I mean, going into Midwest Meltdown, I'm like, I don't have time to, like, convert my army to be different, like, to the other list I had. Didn't quite have my, my Death March list table ready. I've got the models. I have them, primed. It just wasn't table ready. I'm a slow painter, and summer is bad when you work in a construction/city planning field. Like, it's just not good. And so I've had a little bit. Like, I found my way because of the community. You were a big part of that. Bryce, like, stuff like that. Kyle, they're down at NashCon, or I'm sorry, Ty down. Ty, yeah. Well, Kyle was like my inlet into going from, like, essentially small and local tournaments to actually coming out and playing with the big boys. Him and Christian Ware was, like, essentially the closer. But, like, yeah, and just, like, having that inlet has kept me wanting to keep going to tournaments and kept me wanting to play. But I haven't felt that, like, resonant, like, that resolve to just, like, really sink my teeth in with an army and just, like, fucking go as hard as I can. And by hard as I can, for me, it might not mean competitive, but just, like, actually be, like, completely, like, locked in on a game. And with OBR, I'm already, like, fucking over the moon. I don't think this army can let me down in any real sense because of how much I love the models and how much I love the sort of mythology that's spiraling around them. I even love the sort of, like, proto or pan-Asian vibe. I saw this samurai dude, and that was where I was just like, holy shit, it's got a samurai! Like, you mean I don't have to convert my models to be samurai? Like, yeah. There's already one there? Like, I just fucking flipped out.
So the real question is how many samurai mans are you gonna have to buy secondhand from, like, eBay and things like that to have a unit of Mortrek Guard that are just disapproving samurai man?
Oh man, I mean, at least a 10 block, right? So I have to buy 10. So everyone who like converts their models and, like, doesn't want disapproving samurai man, just at me at Mr. That's MR_Meph. MEPH on Twitter. I will gladly buy it from you for a reasonable price. I have 2 kids. I wish to send them to college someday, so be kind. but one unit of Mortek Guard exclusively made from them would be, and then I'll snip and green stuff and give them dynamic poses, but the leaders just gotta be in the pose. Look at how much he disapproves of what you're trying to do right now. This model is excellent. Like, oh man, like the Catacross model, like even Catacross, if you can will yourself to pull your eyes off the magnificent codpiece, if you can actually take in the Besticross model, like he's not even looking at you. Like he doesn't even respect you, the person piloting the army. My lord, look at this scroll. Yeah, whatever. Like he's not looking at the scroll. He's like, I already know everything that's on that map. Whatever the fuck.
So bring me news, I said.
Yeah. Yeah, this is cool. The Spy Master. I had an inkling that he'd be some sort of like battlefield tactician or scout sort, from just like the pose, because they did a great job of like the visuals telling a story. And so like, what's the Spy Master possibly gonna do? And my mind is just running wild with all these ideas. Oh my god. AMA, Brendan, I'm on call right now, excuse me.
Okay. Alright. So chat, what do you wanna know? Questions, answers. I have to burn time until Andrew can stop doing his job. Andrew, we can hear you. Nope. Well, I don't know. We'll, favorite OBR unit. I'll say, other than Catacross, the thing I am most favorite on is the Mortis Guard, so the shield versions. My least favorite unit is probably Chairman. Not a big fan of Chairman.
Yeah, I'm with you. I missed your initial question. I'm on my on-call shift right now. So this is excellent radio for anyone listening back on the podcast.
Color scheme plans, I'm sticking with my regular red and copper and browns. And which Legion are you leaning into? We'll see. I don't necessarily know what my playstyle is going to be out of this. I'm probably looking for a lot of balance. So that might not be any of the specific Legions. Endless spells stink. Disagree, Frank.
The murder crow looks pretty sweet.
Murder bird.
Murder bird looks pretty great. I like the pillar, but I think it needs a little bit more height to it underneath it. So I'm gonna build up the underneath so it's just a little bit taller. What did you ask me while I was on the phone with Digger's Hotline there?
Oh, I wasn't. I was just trying to burn clock. It's taking knees.
Good job. Thank you. You did a fantastic job. That was like on the fly too. So excellent. Look at that all that Cubic Shenanigans podcast like experience coming through.
Yeah, so we'll put this, I'll expose this secret. So we record in Dan's kitchen, and his wife Cindy is usually sitting on the couch watching the Brewers game on silent or just reading, and sometimes he'll just walk away from the microphone to like talk with her quietly about something, and so I just have to take whatever thought I have in my head and figure out how to phrase it in a way where I can ask the question and answer it myself, and continue with the idea.
Man, see that's awesome, but now you've ruined the majesty of Cubic Shenanigans for me a little bit.
No, sorry.
No, I'm actually I missed your favorite unit. I think you said the shield ones. The
shield boys are my favorite.
Shield boys are your favorite. For me it's the Cavalos Death Riders. I'm a big that's probably my favorite unit. My least favorite is Chairman as well. I think he's gonna need some conversion for me to field him if he's one of those units that just must be fielded. Like that's where you have that like if I'm gonna take a balanced list and like you want one for your Mortek crawlers, right? Your catapults, which is what they say his role is like for the crawlers. I'm gonna be really hesitant to take him because I'm not a big fan of the model. I dig the Scythe dude. I don't remember his name. He looks fucking
he's
cool.
super. The Mortisian Soul Reaper.
Yeah, that guy's fucking awesome. And then I'm a big fan of the sarcophagus man that comes in the box, which I'm hoping to pre-order mine very, very soon here. Just like I already have the money in PayPal, like it's all ready to go. Just tell me when I can fucking push the button. Do not discriminate against the disabled. See, that's the thing is, I think he's enabled. I think he's spitting in the face of disabled by using his necromancy to build himself a sweet chair.
It's abjectly like people wrongfully using the scooters at grocery stores.
Like, I can't even make fun of it too much because I know if I just had one cantrip from D&D, like Mage Hand, I would cease to be a functioning, like, adult. Because I would mage hand everything. Like, this beer right now, I would mage hand it to my mouth. I wouldn't even, like... I'd push record and play on my keyboard with mage hand. Like, I would stop doing anything. It's like, you bet your ass if I had necromancy, the first thing I would build, after I built a sweet skeleton, would be willing that skeleton to make me a sweet chair. Because as soon as I can build the skeleton, I ain't walking fucking anywhere. It'll just be like... skeletons carrying me everywhere like the mosh pit, you know, like I'm just like held aloft, and then I'll be like, man, this is inconvenient because there's all these like bony limbs. I could make this more comfortable, so I'll just take like a fucking lazy boy, and then like the skeletons will carry that lazy boy. And now I've told you my super secret conversion idea for chairman, which is taking some of my regular skeletons and having them just carrying the chair.
like full-on Jewish wedding style.
Yeah, just like, yeah, exactly. Man. His friend stole the Dracolis and Griff Chargers, and he decided to steal the Slan chair. Like he saw his
flex. Yeah.
Yeah, he saw his friends like doing something awesome. He's like, well, fuck you guys, I'm gonna get the fucking Slan chair. No one will be this original. It's the legs. I don't even mind his like little like cross-legged full lotus pose. The way he's like sort of pouring a soul into a jar. I don't mind that. But it's just the legs. They just the fact that he looks like David Lopan is awesome. Like that's really awesome. I'm for that. It's just the chair at the end of the day. The sexy legs are the best part. Perhaps.
Oh boy. You do you, man.
All right. Man, that was
we got like it's part of the thing in the show is bold predictions. So we haven't even made predictions. Like that.
No, we haven't made any bold predictions. I didn't talk about a couple of my bullet points here. Which is Xantos actually ties into one of my bold predictions. But like, why don't you go ahead and start it off because you brought it up? The boldest. They can be super tinfoily hat. They can be calculated based on rules you've seen, and it could be pure wish list. Just let me know which one it is and go all out. Plant your flag in it so that.
Yeah, plant your flag and pick.
Yeah.
Bias prediction here. Catacross is going to be in the best builds for this army.
Whoo, that's spicy. He's
really okay.
I mean, that's the thing is like the model sells itself, doesn't it? Like it's gonna Games Workshop's moving. He's selling out, and the hobbyists who don't even run OBR are gonna pay for it. The nod towards Jervis on the Stormcast saying that he's gonna be like his War Scroll is a thing of beauty gives me hope that he's gonna be in basically every build. He might be a little bit of like a Marathi where early on people weren't running Marathi at first, and then like, oh shit, Marathi should just be in every list now, and they bent over backwards to fit her in.
Yeah, Greg had it from the start. That's like he was onto that tech early. That Colorado AOS, that's Greg. Yeah, the next prediction I got off of this is Morghast are still going to be garbage.
Yeah, poor Kyle, but yeah, I can't disagree because the War Scrolls decent, but like looking at stalkers and what they do, even if they're priced competitively against each other, the one is like a pure switch hitter, right? And can just do whatever it feels like. Sorry, 16 more gas ain't gonna be the way.
Yeah.
You're on a roll here. I think you could just keep going.
Yeah, okay, sure. While Mortek crawlers are going to seem like a really good idea, they're gonna be a trap in terms of like points and putting them in your army like on a on a regular basis. Like building into it is going to look like a good idea on the surface, but it is gonna be just tragically bad.
See, I mean, that's the thing is, like, I'm seeing an army unfold in front of me, and I actually kind of agree with this bold prediction. I'm seeing an army unfold before me that talks a lot about these command abilities that are projected through the units and stuff like that. And I'm like, unless you have a ton of steroids for that catapult, can it like, feasibly, I don't think it can really equal the points of, like, putting it into a cavalry unit or putting it into whatever our spellcasting ends up looking like, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually kind of agree, and I feel like it's gonna be a little bit of a ballistas light type thing going on, where like ballistas are really only great when you buy 4 of them, when you invest in that, and
even then it's just gonna be, this is the thing your army does, and someone's gonna be like, and there's gonna be 3 of the 5 people you play are just gonna be like, cool, I don't care.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Well, just roll right past you.
Well, and that's where like shooting to me is like the Fermi's paradox. You're familiar with Fermi's paradox?
I don't think so.
So famously, a bunch of physicists, scientists, whatever, were going to lunch, and they 2 of them were discussing essentially aliens, and then this Dr. Fermi with his lunch comes up and sits down at the table and says, "Then where are they?" When they were debating the likelihood of just the infinites of the universe.
Oh, yeah, aliens, that, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think shooting's a little bit of the Fermi's paradox, as I keep wondering, where is it? Just, I keep, every time someone says shooting's coming back, and, like, we've got Raptors now. Mm-hmm. But that's just, like, kind of...
It's one build, there are things that get around it.
And it doesn't, I'm not quaking in my boots with any of my armies where I'm like, oh no, I'm running to the hills.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's got a Cunning Ruck coming this weekend, so we'll see about that. So we have that. Next bold prediction is you are going to see, obviously we know that there's a Horsey's Boneclave, but there will be a Brass Stampede-like battalion, and it will be capable of a 3-2 weekend with regularity.
Yeah! I'm for that. I would play it for kicks. Like, just like, oh, I don't feel like thinking at this tournament. Let's go! I'm gonna be buying extra boxes of cavalry just to, like, redline my army and have fun. That'll be my beer and pretzels build.
Ooh, a run-and-charge battalion.
Well, I mean, maybe that's what the battalion does for the cavalry or whatever, depending. Who knows? Making that the five ups exploding for mortals be 5-up explodes for D3s, or 4-ups for more, something like that.
Maybe you don't have to spend the discipline points. It's It could be all sorts of things, but I think that'll be one of the battalions. I think it'll run in a similar construct, a Liege Cavalos or the named guy, and then like 3 to 9 units of horsey men. And they do sweet horsey man things. Yeah,
exactly. You run across the table, you pin and hold, right? Just pin you in your deployment and fight. I gotta keep dishing to the hot hand at this point, dude.
Yeah, I think Stalkers are gonna be the backbone for a lot of good armies.
Backbone,
in OBR. Yeah. There is just something that strikes me about their inherent versatility that even outside of the Petrifex Boneclave, that feels like the thing that is going to set this army apart.
They've got a little bit of the Eels feel to them for me. Like, I thought it was going to be the cavalry, but as I've read them, the eels were like there really are like, and not in the way that it is only eels, but like this is a seminal unit for the army. You just go, this is the thing that we're going to be known for in a year. It's these guys showing up. I guess Kurnoth might have been a bit more of a decent metaphor or comparison, where like people like it's really the Kurnoth that stand out in Sylvaneth. For me, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just inherently they're markedly better than Kurnoths. Just I can see them being 3 for 200 points, and they are just they're just better, right? You know, they don't have the teleporting options, at least on the surface, that Sylvaneth do, and we could see that potentially change very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a unit that strikes me, because you have so many of those choices, you are going to be able to solve whatever Rubik's Cube is put in front of you.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that's why they'll form the backbone to most good armies coming out of OBR.
Right. I mean, they also come in the box with the Maw tribes there. You get 3 of them. So it's like this had to be like if you were like an army designer or whatever, I can almost imagine the design room of them sitting down. And they said that it was very much the army was very much driven by the sculptors, but that for me felt like something that the sculptors like keyed in on first, where they're making this guy, and then their rules guy saw it and they're like, oh damn, yeah, you know. And it's just one of those things where I can almost see that interaction of like between like the design teams like really coming up with something like this. And I feel like Catacross probably came a little bit later on when they're like, who is the fucking dude that leads all this sweet shit? Oh yeah, Besticross. That's the only man worthy of this, right? So there's a lot of bold predictions. I
got one more.
One more? Okay, yeah.
Azar Harvesters are going to be 100% necessary to running really any OBR list.
So that's going to be like a must buy.
Yes. And to me, it's probably not so much in that, like, oh, you know, you needed to build good lists. I think you will need it to really even play.
Like it's a pure engine. It's a pure engine for the army, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So my intuition tells me that you're gonna need 1, and that 2 might be excessive.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna order 2 before the book is even in my hand, and like I'm like it's a, you know, I'm like I'm gambling in, I guess, a little bit. I could wait for the book to be here. But
nah, skip it.
But no, I'm just gonna throw money at Mini Stomp until he like giggles and playfully asks me to stop because he can't. But that my thought is that the Azar Harvester is gonna be a bit of an engine, just like you were kind of getting at there. And I'm guessing it's gonna be like 1, 2 for redundancy. But you're gonna have like lists are gonna start out with like 2 in the list, and then you're gonna like I can trim 1 and I can get all this other meat, but then I gotta protect it, and you're gonna see that decision making process in list building. And then Brad in 2 months will just have the list and we'll all copy it anyway. But
2 months he'll have it. He'll reveal it on Saturday, and he's like, "Look, for any of you like looking to get into this army, this is my starting point."
Yeah. Best army. Here's the list.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how much Arcan plays into it. But my prediction is that the good lists are going to start with Catacross. At least a unit of 6 stalkers, potentially 2, and a harvester, and that's gonna be. I'll send you my list on Saturday. Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
That's what I predict the army list writing is gonna start at.
I like everything you're saying, so I'm like, yeah. I would love to start with all that stuff because you've just hit on like what I think are all the really cool like trademark units. The Mortek Crawler's neat, but I had that feeling of like this is a ballista again type thing happening. While I'm like, it's probably going to take a lot of investment to get that thing going, and then you're just going to have armies that are like, oh, okay, because it really is just like if shooting is the answer, you know, where is it? And it's not just that, like, shooting armies disappeared. The game changed. There's more terrain than ever before. You know, you've got Lookout Sir. You've got all these things going on. You think 140 block of Mortec is going to be mandatory?
I think he said 140 block.
Oh!
Because I heard that too as 140 as well, and I was interesting.
Yeah, well, whatever the max unit size is, I'm actually basing my opinions on them off of, like, Graveguard, and I think we might see, like, a max 30 for them. But they come in, if I'm right about maybe I misread it, it was boxes of 20, I thought. Then it would be 40, would it not? So I'm thinking, yeah, but one max block of them is probably going to be necessary. And just one meaty, proper, it almost is like, it's almost like how you just kind of want to build it. You want to build your one big fat unit to just camp or whatever, or, you know, heave-ho, and then you want all these other little, like, missiles to go out and threaten targets and take points and stuff. So, could be. I keep thinking they're going to be like Graveguard is going to be 30. I love Graveguard, but I will affectionately retire them over here. I'm not one of those people who's mad about my Graveguard disappearing because Mortec Guard look fucking sweet. Max unit size
are fucking sweet.
They're fucking sweet. And the dudes with, like, the two-handed swords look awesome. Like, I'm like for it, man. They're already samurai out the box. I don't need to do anything.
Yeah. So that's the other thing on the I think it's only going to apply to the constructs.
What's that?
The +1 save.
Oh, okay.
That's one of my guesses out of that one.
Right, and we have seen different unit types in keywords while reading through some of these War Scrolls right now. So we're probably going to have things in here that are either a different type of construct or aren't constructs. The one art with the Soul Harvester guy, he's like floating and ghostly in that picture. He might not be a construct. So, and Archon's obviously not, but his beastie is. So, do you think Archon's getting a new War Scroll, or is it the old War Scroll?
I think it's going to be mostly the old War Scroll. I could see, like, very minute adaptations, like it cleans up his spell to match what the
FAQ says.
Yeah, what the FAQ in 2.0 is. Like, just anything that pulls data off of that, you know, that extra, like, third source. He's probably going to remain effectively the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll get the keyword for whatever his host is.
Yeah, we'll see some new keywords, but there's people out there like fantasizing about new War Scrolls for Nagash and Archon. At most, maybe a new spell, but you're gonna get that through your spell lores. So even then, I don't see it. I think it's.
What do we get in the spell lore?
Who knows? Like, I think you're gonna see. I mean. It's hard to say with an army like this, but there's been like a spell lore creep, and so I hope we have like a harvesting bone type flamethrower spell, where you murder people with like a Zinchian type, you know, roll a die for every unit and for every model in the unit on a 5 or 6 up, whatever they math it out to be adequate for the trade-off.
Collect their bones.
Yes, yes. Like they take some mortal wounds and you collect the bones.
Yeah, the bones, and you can, and like, I got my D&D hat on. I can just picture it as the bones are ripped out of the body.
Oh yeah. Call the spell Bone Storm.
Bone Harvest.
Yeah, Bone Harvest. Oh man,
the bone reaping.
Yeah, it'd be like I want something like that. Something for your engine is always awesome in spell form, and if you can tack some damage on it too, that makes me extra happy. So, like, I want to see something like that. I want to see some combat steroids. Can we get a Van Hell's equivalent in this army, please? Like,
Who says they don't have it naturally with Besticros?
I mean, that's the thing, is, like, maybe it's on a command ability instead of a spell, so you can't interact with it, and therefore it's more powerful.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it comes off of these, like, infinity discipline points.
There you go. Yeah, there's infinite discipline points because he's a strategic genius. But yeah, they're not summonable, so we're not going to see summonable. We are going to see res units and heal units, I think. We already kind of saw it on the one guy's War Scroll. He had a heal.
Oh yeah, the Bone Mason or the Bone Smith.
Yeah, Bone Smith or whatever had one. So we already saw something like that. I think you're going to see that. I think those are all shoe-ins. I've got a bone prediction for you, a bold prediction here.
Boo.
Yeah, all right. I don't think this is going to be Slaanesh 3.0.
That sounds reasonable.
I'm going a little more gut here than observational data because I see a lot of people selling their Slaanesh armies, and so that makes me go, a little bit. But I don't think we're going to get Slaanesh 3.0 on this. I boldly predicted back on like one of Haywo's casts that we were going to see that Slaanesh would be the new Daughters of Cain. That was largely based on Zinch Mike, I think his name is, in the UK. He was already crushing on Slaanesh. I'm like, and then so that made me look at like Slaanesh's allegiance abilities and stuff, and some of their War Scrolls, and they already had run in charge on the War Scroll. Some things that were just really nice for AOS 2.0, and I'm like, these guys are already good. It's just you're running medals in the army. No one wants to run medals anymore, right? Like you really have to be dedicated to the army to still be running it. So I'm like, no one's running this. It's the person who is running it's probably got a little fatigued on it. Whether it's they want to play something new or I'm like, so I looked at it before and I'm like, this is pretty fucking awesome. If they don't, I don't know if it's they don't recognize it or if they just take this and they just kind of level it up, they're going to be fucking awesome. Like just over the top. I didn't expect them to be this awesome per se. 80% wins if you go off of LLV stats instead of like 70, which is where DOK kind of topped out at. But pretty resoundingly, the feels batter in the community. Everyone kind of hates them right now, and they're
and so I think there is a reason for that. It's because Slaanesh is way more accessible than Daughters of Cain ever was.
Yes, you're buying 5 boxes of 5 instead of you buy a box of 5 Fiends or whatever Hellstriders or whatever, 3 boxes of 5.
Yeah, it's 3 boxes of Fiends. It's whatever your heroes are summoning, and the army even like with summoning will run you $600, where Daughters lists were running people close to $1,000.
Yeah,
and it's it's 100+ models to be on the table, and I'm I've been building some, and they are not my favorite things to build.
Well,
they're that way.
They're finicky. They're thin and kind of spindly limbed. They've got, and then from a painter standpoint, it's a lot of flesh, and faces, and that especially as like a, look at like I think one of the reasons we saw a lot of Nagash was you buy Nagash, you buy 60 Grimgrass Reapers, and the Grimgrass Reapers, it's just like, you airbrush it.
Yeah, it's 4 pieces and you're done.
Airbrush. They're pushed to just airbrush, throwing up. See, they're glow in the dark. That's why they're really phoned in and rainbowy or whatever. So that was another reason you saw like a lot of Naga. And yeah, Slaanesh's accessibility is a big part of an army. I've already seen people more polar on this army than some other releases. Honestly, about the same level as IDK polarization. There was it's like half the people were way for the Fish Elves, half the people weren't. Just like out the gates. And I look forward to it, and I've been talking shit about it all day, so I want to say it on a podcast that people are going to listen to, because who knows how many read me. But I know like 400 people watch my shit. I look forward to watching you swallow your pride to play the new thing that's good. People who said you didn't like Ossiarch Bone Reapers. Feel free to at me with your excuse for why how much you hated their smiling faces before is suddenly okay because they're winning. So I said they're not going to be Slaanesh 2.0 or Daughters of Cain 3.0. I think a big part of that is accessibility. Not so much accessibility as it is going to be people are lukewarm on some of the models. It really, you get people who love them or people who hate them right now. It's a very... Slaanesh, everyone was universal on board with that Keeper of Secrets. Everybody. I didn't know a single person who said that model looked dumb. Right.
There were some people with like very specific criticisms of it, but they're like, yeah, overall the model's good. I would have liked to have seen XYZ be, ABC instead. But they're like, but I also don't care enough. to like for this to negatively impact my purchasing experience.
Right. Whereas like I'm trying to think of, I hate Zangors. Like I
Really?
fucking hate Zangors.
Wow.
I know. No, Enlightened are just fine because they have just enough going too far with it. But regular foot troop Zangors, I'm not a fan of. And so it's a barrier to run my Beasts of Chaos list better. Because the only true block anvil in that entire freaking army is like a 20 block of Zangors. Like, it's like the only anvil you have to actually hold. It's the, I shouldn't say anvil. The only home base you have in that whole army. Otherwise, the rest of the army is just trading places. Like, okay, now we're on each other's stuff. And it's a real, Pink Horrors are, Tzeentch is one of those armies I could truly get behind because the theme of it, he's a little bit too much of a meme lord these days. The Justice Plan stuff I think is stupid in narrative, but like he's the god of magic. I'm cool with the god of magic and fate in general. It's just I can't get behind derpy ass horrors. It might as well be bubblegum stuck to a base. I don't like them. And so I have that, but I have that. That's a me thing. It's not a them thing or an AOS thing. I have that setting where if I hate it, I won't play it. And like, I want to win. It's a game with a win condition. So I want to win if I line up on a table with a win condition. It's not the only thing that matters to me, which is where I think I differ from some other people still in the competitive mindset. I do consider myself more in the competitive mindset than not. But I'm not like all the way there yet. We've had some conversations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is like I just won't run it if it looks stupid to me. And so like and I don't think I'm alone. I think there's a lot of players in the Age of Sigmar community that have that barrier. Right now I think we're seeing it with Cities of Sigmar. People are like, "Yeah, but it's not a dwarf." And I'm like, "Who cares? It's great." Like, we're seeing it though. You can't disagree.
It's right, that's true, but you don't I don't think you see it from like your super top shelf players
I guess
who are interested in punching people in the face. Like they'll make decisions to run the thing that they like the most, and and they'll make their decision off of that, which is fine. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
yeah. No, so like I mean, yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that is a distinction between like the top like tables 1 through 5 type players, right? Like where you're just you will compromise the aesthetic to win and things like that. And I there's nothing against it. I just feel like that's one of my barriers to like complete and total success is like if I hate the fucking model, I won't run it. It's part of the reasons I just couldn't commit to Flesh Eater Courts. I even love their lore. I just hate stupid naked ghouls with distended stomachs and they're all indistinguishable from one from another. If you like ghouls, by all means. I'm not bashing anyone who likes that look. It's just not my thing. And I'm like, I couldn't get on board with Gristlegore, even though I'm such a like devout death. I'm like, nah, I'll take 1 extra loss every tournament or 2 extra losses and stick on my like now suddenly underpowered Nagash list. Or not underpowered, but fat middle Nagash list instead of dominant. Whatever. Like I was willing to take that hit, but I feel like I've got that gear maybe. And maybe Bone Reapers will just align with it wins and I love it, and so maybe I can hit that next Echelon too. I mean, it's not like I was fucking jobbing with my Nagash army pre-GHB 19. What is the most artistically overrated model in Age of Sigmar? That is man, I'm going to hurt someone's feelings. Let me think a moment. A model where a model that people just kind of universally love or adore, and then I'm just like I don't see it when I look at it. And I'm like, this looks dumb. See, I can't say Lord of Change because I think Lord of Change looks cool. I really do, and I'm like I hate birds, yada yada. I think Lord of Change looks sweet. I'm gonna play Corvus Cabal in Warcry because crows are awesome, and I love that there's a bunch of crows in this army. So it's not. Man, I'm trying to think. What's a Archaon? Ooh, that's a deep cut there, Luke. Luke's saying Archaon.
That's bold.
That's a bold.
Two for Archaon.
2 for Archaon.
Wow.
I think I actually said in a public forum that I'm not sold on Archaon because I hate the mount, and then people looked at me like, what the fuck? His cape is fantastic, though. Man,
Yeah.
maybe Drycha? Because I just don't see it. Like, I like the idea of Drycha and the like, the playstyle they're leaning her toward, but it fucks with my trypophobia. Like, I can't handle the, like, the beehives and stuff. They are allowed to be wrong. Some of the thematically awesome models for Seraphon simply have not aged well. So I think a lot of those that people are really affectionate about are I don't see it in that respect, so I think they are overrated and they didn't age well. Most of the ogre stuff, they're just not good sculpts. Except for Stonehorn.
You don't like ogres?
I think that a lot of the like gutbusters, the traditional gutbusters, they're
I'm gonna fight you.
See, no, see, I have a hard time saying, like, it's one of those things where, like, I'm having a hard time recalling the information right now, but I know I've had that opinion or impression. Drycha's the only one that really comes to mind because it just, like, fucking hits me right in the, like, that like weird phobia of, like, clusters, you know what I'm talking about, the trypophobia, where I just, like, look at it and I'm like, I have to look away from the model, especially when it's painted really well. Frostheart Phoenix, woof. Man, Luke just going deep on pissing everybody off tonight about their old darling models. Ogres, that's it. No, I mean, that's the thing is, like, you can bash up ogres and you can put your spin on it, and most of the oh no, I've got it. No, I got it 100%. Bulgors. Bulgors look terrible. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm taking a shot at my own army. I love the idea of Bulgors. They look terrible. The way their fur just, like, squishes out of their bodies and doesn't look even remotely like fur messes with my head. It's Bulgors. They're a little derpy. They're a little too boxy in their stance. And their fur doesn't look right. It's Bulgors. That's it.
I'm trying to get my silver bullet pick on this one. Like
the one that will hurt me the most.
Well, no, not for you, but just in general. The one that sits so poorly with me, and like I'm trying to like look in my cases and see if there's a model that I painted that, like, if I remember, like, oh yeah, I hated every moment of that.
Yeah, but, like, ghouls are kind of, like, universally accepted as not being the best thing, though. So, like, the question wasn't, like, one I personally hate. It was more about overrated.
Yeah, overrated.
Overrated. I don't agree with the Guo being overrated. I think Guo is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a model that everybody loves, or a large percentage of people loves that you think is stupid.
I love it when you say it that way. There's even a little bit of disdain.
Yeah. You know what? I've got mine.
Yeah?
Alariel.
Ooh! You're not a fan of the Gam Queen?
I think like her scale is all sorts of messed up. I think the beetle didn't go far enough, and it was like like one of those early things in Age of Sigmar where it's like they're trying to set the lore, but I don't think that they went far enough into what Alariel is supposed to be. I don't think the model matches the war scroll matches the lore.
This is an important lesson. This is one of the reasons I'm loving OBR so much, is they did all that well. I started off the show talking about that.
Ban him. Done. Done. Yep. Him. I don't know who he is.
I
don't want to hear it.
We'll give him a timeout.
Yeah.
I can't ban a sub. He supports the stream.
It's about having morals, Mephisto. This is
my morals are gladly on sale for just $5 a month. For five small measly dollars a month, or one femur.
Message deleted by a moderator.
Oh, that was harsh. Oh, that's harsh.
Oh.
60 seconds. It's like 10 minutes. Oh, Jesus. Okay. All right. Oh, man. You can't come in here and like bash Nagash's model and expect to not feel the thunder from my mods.
This is a weirdly specific like Twitch stream. It's not like you can't come on here and like not talk like, you know, like you can talk garbage about things in Age of Sigmar. There are a couple things that feel totally off limits. One is Nagash and them boys.
Yep.
Two is you have to make fun of Tomb King Tristan at some point. Three, you have to accept that Beasts of Chaos are bad, but there's hope.
Yeah.
And you have to like bear through some amount of sports ball.
Yeah. It's okay. You're no longer powerless, Frank. Yeah. No, it's yeah, that's the thing is like I do. Sorry, my stream froze. It's okay. You just lost your powers. No, I do. I respect most people's opinions. You're allowed to have your wrong opinion.
Oh. Like there's some like Mephisto equivalent where he is all about like Archeon, and you can't get on his Twitch stream and get in his chat and be like, Archeon's a dumb model. He'd be like, out, don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I talk about like when I'm unabashedly for something, or I'm ashamed. Being a shameless homer is fun. It's fun in sports. It's fun in Age of Sigmar. When you just have that thing that you fucking love unapologetically, it's a lot of fun because like there isn't actually anything you can say to me to hurt my feelings about Nagash because I love it so. I love the model and I love the character. Like I pronounced it Nagash when accepting my trophy. And, like, people decided to, like, make fun of me. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally pronounced it like I used to when I first started playing Warhammer. Because just there's words out there that, like, you used to pronounce it a certain way, you've corrected it. And, like, it just, every now and then the old pronunciation comes back. That's Nagash. And, like, ever since that happened, I've just leaned into it even harder. And the number of times I say Nagash has dramatically increased because one person gave me crap. Brad. And like, that's the thing, is, like I'm so shamelessly and unapologetically for the things I'm for, whether it's my sports ball teams that I love, or the models and the things I love in Age of Sigmar. Because, like, that's the beauty of, like, loving, especially subjective stuff. You know, is like pineapple on pizza. There is no matter how much I like pineapple on pizza, it's really not ruining anyone's actual day. Nagash,
right.
You know, like, and so it's fun to just have these things that you love no matter what, because I guess there's people out there who could take it personal that I like Nagash and I say Nagash, but like, that's on them at that point. That you're, whatever's going on in your life, that you're like, this guy fucking loves a piece of plastic. What an asshole. Like, cool, dude. It doesn't hurt me that you think that way. Because you're not going to get to be my little tower of fun. Same thing with, like, the Bucks. And I had to endure the Bucks being bad for basically my entire life. But being such a shameless homer, I'm like, this is the year. Ray Allen's going to take them all the way. No, Ray Allen, come back. Like, like that, like... Like, it's fun to be a homer because, and I use homer not just in a sports sense, but, like, for your team in Age of Sigmar, too. Because then you get those sort of, like, that second tier of enjoyment of the thing. You talk about the 100, sticking with an army. You just did your, sort of, what was it, the Doctor of Death episode a little bit ago on Cubic Shenanigans. And one of the things you talked about was, like, just putting in the reps with your army. A lot of it's reps with your army. And,
yep.
even if the meta shifts and like suddenly you find yourself at a disadvantage, well, now you have to figure out how to overcome that disadvantage. And that's where like homerism can actually be a big deal. Like if you just fucking love orcs and you stick with orcs, well, lo and behold, GHB 2019 happened. You know your orcs inside and out. Now you're fucking great. You've got some new tools. Like those guys immediately skyrocketed to top tables, right? Because that and I do think that I'm not saying stick with your army through thick and thin. I can't lose for 1 year straight. I could barely fucking handle like a month of like a month and a half before I felt the weight of like that like, okay, I can't keep doing this. And you know, like I'll play it for the love, but I have my threshold. I think my threshold is about a year of losing on like the thing that's clearly underpowered. And like, man, oh yeah, it's underpowered. Oh, man, you did 3 and 2 with it. I'm like, God, I played fucking lights out and I only went 3 and 2. I've never played a bet, like things like, you have things like that where you're like, I played fucking lights out and I only went 3 and 2. Like I can't handle that. Haywo's still on BCR for like fucking 2 years running, and he's just 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and 2, and it's like, man, you'd think after just like losing games you have no tools in for just like and stealing wins against people that deserve to beat you and stuff with better lists or whatever, that you'd start to feel.
I don't know what his problem is. He's been playing BCR for 2 years, like you were saying, and you can just have some casual BCR players pick it up and match it.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Never pushed a Stonehorn into a Fanatic before in your life?
Look, I didn't play it for 2 straight years. I just pick it up to feel good.
You know what's funny is like literally nothing changed. They just got 2 years
ago.
Worse. They just got worse, but like it's not like they changed. It's still the same thing. It's just that the world has left them behind. You look at the allegiance abilities, and that's one of the things that I immediately identify between AOS 2.0 and the Dark Ages and AOS, what I'd effectively call 1.0, is allegiance abilities. There's just a lot of allegiance abilities on armies now, and they make things more interesting. I have been known to say some stuff about rules bloat or the arms race of rules is one of the like I talk about these things. I talk about them as cautionary tales. I don't think we're there yet, because if you asked me simply and honestly, is the game more interesting now than it used to be? And I would without hesitation, say
absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
My catchphrase. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's the catchphrase. If we play the cubic shenanigans drinking game, every time Brendan says absolutely, take a shot. now he's gonna censor himself because he's aware that I'm listening for it.
Oh no, I want to be the reason people end up in hospitals. That's obviously what I'm here for.
There we go. No, the rules bloats and stuff is cautionary tales, but like the game is more interesting now because the rules are. We don't want a bunch of people with 4s and 4s to hit. Everyone's got a 100-point unit, 3s and 4s to hit, 1 damage, no rend, and use the base book command abilities. I don't think, and then you just line up your 100-point dudes against my 100-point dudes, and we've all got our. Nobody wants that. You don't want 2 2s for 2 in Magic the Gathering, as far as the eye can see. As much as people might talk about it, I don't think they truly want it, and so it's a pendulum. You don't want it to swing way too far from the middle, certainly. But like, I look at this and I don't see any language we really haven't truly seen before with Ossiarch Bone Reapers, right? It's just.
Well, I disagree with that.
Okay, go on.
I think what we have seen is a lot of new language, and it's not so much the rules themselves; it's what they trigger on.
Sure.
It's it's going up and having the Hecatos or whatever, having
different
delivery. Like literally having potentially 20 heroes on the field. Now they're not heroes in all of that. The other thing is that you have just you are tossing out a main game mechanic in command abilities and command points, and you are bringing them in and saying this is how this army functions instead. That is totally new.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. But what my point was that you're not seeing something that just like, I don't even know what the fuck this is with some of these rules. Now, because there is a common lexicon for, I know what rerolls to hit looks like.
Yeah.
The delivery system might be different, but I know what rerolls to hit looks like. There has been moving rerolls to ones to hit onto generic command abilities was like a revelation for the game that I don't know that we're talking about nearly enough as maybe content creators, because we just get so busy talking about how much we hate Fletcher Court, Slanesh, or whatever the flavor of the month to hate on is. That we've like overlooked some of the the cool shit that's gone on with the game in terms of like good rules. They're good sort of rules arms race, which is everyone now gets an ability to deliver a reroll once to hit. Like, some of that stuff goes overlooked for being a good thing, I think, for the game. Making it more fun, making it more interesting. Suddenly my Bestigors can just get that now. Awesome. You know, like, cool. Now the challenge becomes finding a hero to fucking keep up with them because they're blazing fast.
Right.
But
and that's one of the other things competitively that I think is going to make Bone Reapers very interesting is what you're saying, where you have to keep that character with them.
Yes.
You have the character with them all the time, no matter what.
Right.
Like, you never have to worry about that that bubble anymore. It just is. It's self-contained, and like, I don't have to make sure that my Liege Cavalos is here, and I've strung out that one guy, and like, I'm losing attacks for it. As long as I'm not an idiot about where I put my unit champion, I can do all the things so far.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve for that, because I think, like, I've gotten to the point where, like, with 40 skeletons for the sake of efficiency, well, 80 skeletons, I don't even give a fuck where the unit champion is. Like, the difference between 1 to attack when you're rolling 120 dice and, you know, like, it's just, like, I don't even... So I'm going to have to retrain myself now to care about where the unit champion is. And that's going to be part of the learning curve. That's just part of this army, is I see an army with a high skill floor, and that makes me fucking excited.
Yeah, I feel like we've been overdue from one of those. And I don't want to say that anything recent has strictly been, you require no talent to be excellent.
No, that's...
But I can't necessarily remember the last, we'll call it, like, maybe Gitz is the last thinking man's army so far.
Could be, yeah. Yeah, like a pure thinking man's. I'd say Change Host, but Change Host isn't new. Like, Change Host is a little bit of a you're playing a chess type game when you're, you know, when other armies are just like, I'm just gonna fucking run my shit up the middle, pin you, and fight you. Like, you know. Even Sybarites in the Invaders Host has some tricks you need to figure out, spacing and stuff. So, like, it's not 100%. I'm not saying no army is without a skill floor or decisions to make. I just think this army is one that's really leaning into those decisions. You're going to walk away from the table going, fuck, if I had gone for the defensive buff there instead of the rend 1, damage 1, I could have held that objective. You know, like, you're going to walk away from the table saying stuff like that to yourself instead of like, oh, if I had charged that guy. It's not just if I had charged that guy anymore. Or if I had positioned here, it's if I had positioned here and used this way. And you're getting those like second and third sort of wind decisions.
An army that truly favors the prepared.
Yes. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of appeal in an army like that like you already have preparedness being one of the most important aspects, I think, of it's practically a prerequisite to win tournaments. You just have to be prepared, because if you're not, I don't know anyone who can just walk up like a gunslinger out of 100 people and like, oh, fucking take this list out of nowhere. I've never played it before. Maybe you on BCR, but
yeah, if we're calling 3 and 2, you know, taking it out.
Yeah, no, but like going 5 and 0 on a list you've never played before, you know, with a display board you're borrowing and you don't even have your AOS reminders sheet with you, like, you're going to have a bad time. I mean, if you're already a certain caliber of player, you're going to be able to adapt on the fly and pick it up quicker. But the other players who are at that same level, who have prepared, they're going to have that advantage. You know, advantage them in that matchup. You know, that's kind of what I'm saying with that. And so now you have this list that you have to have all that prerequisite stuff, but then you also have to go like that one tier deeper. I think as you play, there'll be a sort of a linear decision making. You know, if I'm holding the objective, then I use this ability. If I'm assaulting, then I use this. If I'm attacking that unit, then I should use this. There'll be a little bit of that, but not always. And that's, to me, where I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's, I'm already looking forward to whatever we see tomorrow in terms of the previews. Now, tomorrow at 4 p.m. British time, the Ogre Battletome preview is what's on Warhammer TV.
No, I actually think it's awesome that they paired the Ogres with... I'm just going to say Ogres. I'm tired of trying to sound like they're not what they are. I like that they paired the Ogres with the OBR. They even had like a pretty neat story for it, where like they were paying their tithe, and then like the king's son of the Ogre Empire is just like, nah man, fuck that. He was soft. We're just gonna fucking fight him and eat the bones. And then like, whoa, now you done started shit. And so like, and that's like kind of the backdrop for the Feast of Bones. So I think that's cool. I like that. I think once all of the armies are represented again, they're all in that fat middle, the 3 and 2, with like the good stuff settling out at the top. I think that's just a great place to be. That sort of, I think that'll be cool, and then we get to see 2 brand new out of nowhere armies a year instead of 1 and a bunch of these stuff being brought up like cities and tribes and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that'll.
Yep.
It's exciting times. We have. And PACA is going to be basically 4 untested armies hitting at least for like the Midwest tournament rounds, hitting all at one time, and I cannot wait for the chaos that's.
It will be chaotic, and you're really going to see the people who manage to get in their reps, and learn their armies by heading to somebody's basement and just grinding out some games or going to the LGS. You're going to see that. That's going to mean the difference between like the mirror of like the OBR players and Maw tribes and whatever whoever's bringing. I'm looking forward to just seeing that variety on the table. That's always been like pretty awesome, is to see all the new armies, and well, not new armies, all the armies just out there and everyone's different take. Man, so are you going to call your shot? Lord of Death, are you going to call the shot? Is he coming back?
Yeah, I'm coming back. It's ridiculous. Yeah, like.
What's the over/under on tournament wins and or best in death?
So I've started getting into the habit of what the Detroit guys are, where the acceptable weekend is 4-1.
I see.
And I think that's made like a fundamentally different perspective on how I've been approaching tournaments. I was really disappointed in myself for not getting practice games in with my Slaanesh going into Circle City, and that was because the army was at the painter, and this is the first time I've not painted an army, and that was really frustrating to just kind of be pushing around like, oh, here's an Eidolon, this is Shalaxi, and then here's a Keeper of Secret, not a Keeper of Secrets, a Lord of Change, and this is my regular Keeper, and here are my Black Knights, and these are Hellstriders, and that...
It doesn't ingrain the right way.
Right.
Like, that visual element that says this is what this is what this thing's range is, you need that. Like card art on Magic, like it's just identifying it. Like you don't read every card spell in Magic's text because you know the fucking card and you know what to do when you see it. That's why when people show up with the full art or weird art foils and stuff, suddenly your brain just gets like jarred a little bit because you learned it visually. So I think the same thing happens, especially in a 3-dimensional game with objects and models that you hold. There's a tactile learning experience that you're missing out.
Yeah, and so I've got a little more prep going into Dragonfall. It's not where I'd like to be. Well, Brad, I don't do this 2-win thing that you're talking about. That's ridiculous. But like before I trotted out my Handbook 16, Handbook 17 Nagash to tournaments, I had 30 to 50 games under my belt before I even arrived at that tournament. Mm-hmm. And like I have historically when I want to playing 1-2 games a week at an absolute minimum, and like I am more than happy to play against the same army. Play through 2-3 battle rounds. Say like, okay, well this is where it is. We play a different mission, or we pick we flip a different battle round. We talk it out from there. The reps, you don't need to necessarily play the whole game to know how all of this works, but we're gonna start getting back to how'd your BCR do at Adepticon? Well, Brad, I was asked to help work the stream, and they were mixed destruction, sir, and I got cheated in round 3 by Christian, so that's a win, obviously. So I went 2-1 on Saturday.
See, that sounds an awful lot like an excuse to me, and I feel like the first thing you need to do when you're trying to be a dominant player is take excuses, ball them up, and throw them the fuck out the window. Find what you did wrong and learn from that. You can't go off the excuse, man.
It's not an excuse. It's the reality of
it. No, I remember I walked up to you day 2, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm helping with the stream, so you know how good this is going," type thing. I'm like, all right, dude. No, I think there's what you were talking about, like playing it out, redeploying, or maybe being like, okay, so if I had one priority this turn and seeing what that looks like.
Yeah. So or we'll go through and something unlikely occurred. Like a re-rolling 2-ups. And like if it was something that was re-rolling 2-ups, or like you had 2 triggers at like a locus of diversion to go after something, and you rolled double 1s, and just be like, look, man, that's not realistic as to what we'd be expecting in the situation. We're just gonna say the locus of diversion triggered. We're gonna play it out that way, because if it doesn't, I kill this unit, and and I roll through this, that, the other. And in the chat, Brad is 100% absolutely correct on this. You only really need to play through 2 or 3 battle rounds to understand where the game is headed and plan from there. But the thing that is most important is understanding your mechanics and how to get into that winning position at round 2 and 3, because at that point it just becomes a cleanup process.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where one of the things, like I was, I've had people come up and like ask me like, oh, can you build me a list that uses these models? And I'm like, okay, but like, how are you going to play it, and how are you going to win? And these are like 2 questions that like people don't, I think, consider enough in their list building when they're not just taking Brad's list. Is like, okay, so like you have this, like you really want to play with like this thing, right? And you're like, oh, cool, you really want to play with 20 Bestigors. Well, how do you win? What are you going to do to win with 20 Bestigors? And if the answer you get to the end of it is like, I can't win with 20, I can't, that's not a good list. Scrap it. Make something else. Like, and if you're like, I don't care if I win, well, then that's fine too. But you got to have that expectation of, and you got to gauge that. If your intent is to win, the intent to win and the intent to play what you want don't always line up. And if you're okay with accepting that and going one way or another, you're going to have decent games. If you want to win, then you're going to have to build to win and play to win, right? You're going to have to get your reps, you're going to have to prep. One of these things that I think you guys are kind of floating around is this notion of playing to learn the lesson, which is when you're talking about doing 30-minute game reps or talking out the end, is at that point you're playing to learn the lesson of where this goes, what happens if then, what did I do to where we're talking out right now, and we're going towards different conclusions. Like, you gotta, I mean, some advanced players maybe don't need to do that. Maybe it's just about getting your rules down and stuff like that. But I think most people aren't in the advanced category of gamer. They play once a month, once every couple months. But if they walk away with a desire to win and they're learning those lessons, you're gonna do a lot better.
Yeah. I'm loving the chat here. With Brad and Greg, talking about what it is that they do. Yeah. Where specific scenarios, backfoot scenarios, hard counters, specific situations. It's it's the sports ball term. You practice, what the Patriots always do. They practice the situation. They play a lot of situational football.
Right.
And And he's absolutely right. It's getting comfortable in situations where you're uncomfortable.
Right.
And if you play 100 games and you've made a diligent point to not play against the same list in the same mission with your same list every time, you'll have actually learned something and can go about it that way, which is tough for some smaller communities, obviously, where not everybody has this large collection of models, amidst a well-established club that is run consistently, out of this store or this person's basement, and they meet on this night and they do this and that and the other. You can also, between you and your buddies, just roll out some bases and say, this unit is that, let's see how this goes. The access to the War Scrolls is entirely free. The battalions aren't, and all that other stuff isn't, but there's enough resources where you can acquire that knowledge relatively easily.
Ask a friend, ask Twitter. Like, they'll
right.
tell you. And Games Workshop's not going to crack the whip if you're like, hey, how many units of Bestigor can I have in a Phantasmagoria list? No one's just going to be like, oh, fucking ban this asshole. Like, yeah.
The best players, the ones that are getting consistent, are playing a lot of games in their off time between tournaments. Like, that's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have Joel McGrath on this Thursday. He's a super competent AOS player in the Upside Down, and we're really just going to talk about it's going to be a really tournament heavy discussion then, and I'm interested to see what sort of parallels between, obviously it's a different meta, they might have some different prep stuff, but I bet you're going to see a lot of parallels between just winners across the world in terms of prepping, getting in your reps, learning your rules, and learning to play from the back foot is a huge skill, but that only comes from exposures to situations. You don't want to play from the back foot, but learning to play from the back foot or from behind or whatever your nomenclature is just key. And mention how Joel's club is 0-2 against privateers. I'm sure
they just don't get the reps in. That's that's the answer, right?
Right. Right.
I had a point here. I forgot because we looked at the Forge Privateers.
So you got to run it back to what your previous point you were on, and then you should be able to jump right back in. That's a RantCast technique for you. Super secret knowledge. So you're talking. We were talking about getting in reps, the successful players, the winning players, and what they do, their habits.
Is what it was. Greg had made a comment, a half hour ago in the chat about playing an army for a year, and I obviously don't have any numbers to that, but I would bet a large sum of money every player who has gotten to be successful has had an army that they played for an extended period of time to learn the basics and the fundamentals and to get a really solid grasp of how all of this works. They could have been in fantasy battles, it could have been in 40K, it could have been Age of Sigmar, it could have been War Machine, but it's this protracted period of time thinking in a very specific way that gets you to that point. And I recently have made that exact bit of advice to somebody. It was they're like, I want to get to being a good tournament player, and I said, well, you got to cut the shit out where you are changing your army literally, not like just the list, within the legions. They were changing whole armies. They were going from Slanesh to Ironjaws to Flesh Eater.
Well, they were chasing the meta before they had the aggregate knowledge they needed, the basic sort of knowledge. Your Slanesh army can get you, to 3-2 comfortably just on the strength of the list and stuff. But you're gonna get to a point where you meet the real monsters at the tournament, and they're just gonna push your shit in, unless you've got the reps and that deeper knowledge.
And Brad, you don't have to play an army for a whole year. Like you're already at the point where your curve is accelerated, right? It's the coming up into that category. Is you need to understand the game on a different level. So It's once you get to that level, that period of time to learn an army becomes much quicker. It's why you can have people, pick up armies they aren't super familiar with, get a couple games in and say, okay, I roughly know how this works. I think I can do pretty all right.
Yeah. I mean, and the skills communicate. Once you've got that deeper knowledge, your learn time, you're up learning that new army is going to come quicker, and it's going to come quicker. You don't lose all the skills you got from your one army playing the game, by I'm a big Legion of Nagash player.
Right.
I'm hyper aware of boards, like board space, board control, and stuff like that because of that army. And so if I take that into like something like IDK, positioning and board, like I've still got that skill. It's from playing a shit ton of games, and you just can't get there without playing a shit ton of games, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it's practice. It's practice and being consistent about it.
But even
you can watch all the podcasts, you can read, all of the blog posts and all that, but there's a certain value that comes with experience.
Yeah. I mean, and here you got like Soren here is like, I don't understand the game at all. I do try, but I am a hobbyist. Well, that same mentality, like if you're like, man, I look at Vince Venturella's Slanesh army and I'm just not that good at painting. Vince has the reps in. He's on on his staircase journey. He's been painting. He puts in the reps on his painting too. That skill, you're not gonna like go into like a thing that you want to excel at and just be like totally surprised to find out that like that reps and time invested equal getting better at it. It's just I feel like people want the shortcut with Age of Sigmar because it's got a meta. It's got a meta, and so people just think that if I pick up the meta thing, I'm going to automatically be better, and I'm automatically... And maybe you might enjoy an extra win at your LGS or two, or like suddenly you pick up the busted thing, you netlist Brad's list, and you find yourself just crushing plebs at the LGS.
Yeah, that's not a list you can pick up and not have asked some questions. There's some really frustrating mechanics to that list, as I learned.
I'm just saying, like whatever. Flesh Eater Courts was probably the most egregious in terms of this, where it really was super point and click at the heyday of Gristlegore.
Oh yeah, it was super dumb. My first round of the ATC, I won a game I absolutely had no business winning because I was just like, well, I know more than you, and this list does more than your list can, so check this out.
Right, and there is an innate skill to things, which can help you in two ways. If it's a staircase of skill from where you are and where you want to be, it's a staircase. If you have innate skill, you start out 3 or 4 or 5 rungs, or hell, you could be halfway up the staircase because you're just a phenom. So you start out halfway. You've got the tool. This is like in basketball. You just have the physical gifts to be a great basketballer. But if you don't learn mechanics, you're gonna hit that ceiling and suck. You're one blown out knee from never being great. Right.
Your athleticism gets you so far for so long.
Yeah, aptitude as well in gaming, in painting, playing the guitar. Aptitude will get you. It'll start you someplace on that staircase. But if you never practice, you never put in the reps, you're not gonna find yourself ascending. Heck, having a natural aptitude can help you ascend the staircase even quicker. But you still got to put in the reps and climb. It's just, yeah. It's like and so I think there's a little bit of a, like, people want the easy cheese and they want the like the fast information. There's so much information, but then applied knowledge is another tier that you need.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to winning an event. There's a shortcut to upping where your theoretical value is.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did I get a shout out on the did I get a shout out on the Just
or is
Play?
It Deadhammer? I think it's Deadhammer.
I don't know. I gave Ian a stern talking to.
Oh, fair enough.
I listen to a bunch of different content creators that all look at the game from different perspectives, and I like to think that I get along with them all, and we don't always agree, but I don't think there's a single one who has malice toward the game, and if I meet them, then I might have some words. But Dadhammer, Aw. um, but no, I think there's but like the 1 year on an army thing is a consistent thing I think I've seen between a couple of different content creators. And maybe 1 year is an arbitrary value, but it you're not doing yourself favors by constantly switching armies every month. Like Isaiah is a fantastic player, but like he really needs that
Yep.
that he needs that deeper tier, you know. Um,
Yeah, I've talked with him a couple times about it. He's a really solid player as he is, but he would benefit from that protracted period of time saying, I'm just playing X.
Yeah.
And for the next 6 events, that's all I'm doing is playing X.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll be all the better for it. And for those of you that don't know, Isaiah is a 17-year-old in our Milwaukee club who is solid, but he has more armies than I do, which is baffling.
He's
and
it's
and,
humbling.
and he,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's humbling to know that. So like, every now and then you encounter somebody who's just, they start out with an innate skill in something that you had to work towards, and it actually is humbling. And Isaiah is one of those cases for me where I'm like, I wasn't this good at the game at 17. I was playing like every weekend Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but I was just playing my friend Sam's High Elves, or his brother's Lizard Men, or his other brother's Greenskins. And I'm like, I didn't have that savvy and that understanding. But like, yeah. So he certainly started out on the staircase, up above me, but.
Yeah, and to LLV,
oh yeah,
actually his dad is someone I would say who did knuckle down and played one thing specifically for a protracted period of time and did improve significantly. Yeah, his dad specifically played Tyrants of Blood and made tweaks within Tyrants of Blood, and then what is it now? It is Tyrants of Blood now. It was Blood Council or whatever those 2 battalions were, where he started with that, and he was just getting his face pushed in. Before that, and in the first couple tournaments with it, and then he got better and better. And the time he came around to Meltdown in 2018, he had a top 10 finish, and I think everyone will agree that was a very strong field within the Midwest community itself. Mm-hmm. And he just puts the time in, and he's gotten better for it. And he did the thing where at Circle City, he jumped to something he wasn't familiar with. He didn't have some games with it. And normally at first, I would say that would have torpedoed his event. But he learned after the first game, he learned more in the second game. And then by the end of the event, in what amounted to effectively his 6th or 7th game with the Army, he had a capable understanding of it.
Yeah.
And that makes it... he's going to Dragonfall, and that list makes me specifically nervous because he has become a capable player. And normally, even a year or 2 ago, I would have said, "Oh, he hasn't played his 25 games with it, so he's just going to forget everything."
Yeah, yeah. No, and Mr. Reliable here. Yeah, the Ram checks are fucking fantastic people. I often joke that like I hope that Colin and I or Lily, I think Lily's actually got the bigger gamer streak. I hope that we're like that when we just, you talk about ambassadors of the game, like god damn it, like they're like some of 2 of the greatest ambassadors of our community. Like if the Ramcheks go to a tournament on the East or West Coast repping the Midwest, you're just like, they're gonna get like a good sample of what the Midwest is all about. So yeah, I think we're very fortunate. And I do think, I've probably got a national audience at this point, people who listen to me that aren't just in the Midwest. Maybe, I don't know. I see the numbers, but I don't see where they're from. But statistically speaking, we'll say like if you're on the East Coast or West Coast, you maybe don't live in as fortunate in as fortunate a area for getting in reps and getting in tournaments. And that's where you just need to assess, is it something you want to be good at? Is it something you want to put that time into? And then you're going to have to make some sacrifices to get that. You're going to have to drive an hour, to whatever the best store is. hell, you could go as far as some people I've heard just making a meta, getting every single one of their fucking friends interested in it, because you get 5 friends interested in it, and suddenly you have a local meta. Like, you just have to put in that, and you have to assess: can I do it? Is it worth it? Do I really want to do it? But but yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is, like, if you want to, cool. If you're happy being a hobbyist, I will never throw shade at you for whatever pillar you play the game at beyond the playful banter sort of stuff. But
except I will make one
narrative players.
exception.
No,
not narrative players. I help run narrative events.
I'm just fucking kidding.
We have one guy locally, one guy who. He's a 40K player, and he comes in and brags constantly about how he doesn't paint models. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, paint your army. Frank, I know Frank from Chat Gang really hates that too. Fuck that guy immediately, all caps, yeah.
I'm fine if it takes you a while. I don't care. You could have... It could take you 10 years to get that army painted, but you make progress over the course of time. But man, oh man, do I hate guy who brags that he doesn't paint his army.
This is fantastic. Like, oh man, so this is now like 3 or 4 weeks in a row on RantCast of people shaming that guy.
So that guy... So Armies on Parade was this weekend.
Yeah.
That guy came in and was playing a game and was talking about, he's like, oh, well, I don't paint my armies. And I'm there, and I'm just like, dude, the event today is about celebrating people whose armies have been painted. And I wanted to be like, back in my day, young man, you couldn't even come into a Games Workshop and play if your shit wasn't painted. So, like, just get out of here with that unrelenting bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, well, and Frank, people who are good at 40K don't play him because he's also a pain in the ass, aside from not painting.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just like a... Why are you playing the game? I get to a point where, like, I understand... Like, I understand not... Like, I'm not a great hobbyist, but, like, I like the like, having an army that's mine, right? Like, I like that feel. Like, I don't understand. There's kind of, like, a hobby portion to the game, and you... Put it this way, as a gamer, you get tournament points for painting the army, so then just fucking do it, like, game
right.
That system, too. Look at the rubric and go, oh yeah, I need 3 textures on my basis. Flip, 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 there we go. You're not going to win the hobby awards, but you're going to get your points. Like, come on.
Yeah, I just...
40K has army.
I fucking love you, Trunzo. You're my favorite.
Yeah.
I just...
Yeah, I don't... I tried watching a 40K game at Adepticon. And maybe it was just the game I was watching, but it really was just, like, a couple of big, stupid crap, and then, like, a string of cultists, because I guess the tech priest from Mars or whatever had recently come out. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it was just, like, this string of, like, fucking tech priests, and I'm like, where are all the models? Like, I'm just looking around the table, and I'm like, it was like, oh yeah, it's turn 2, so, like, most of them are dead, and I, like, look over at the dead pile, and it's just, like, fucking tiny. I'm like, okay. Like, like,
yeah,
like you see these prolific dead piles in Age of Sigmar. Like, a dead pile in Age of Sigmar could become 3 40K armies, if you just proxied them.
and I really truly didn't understand what it looked like until I was at the ATC and I was walking around, with the 100 and some odd 4-man teams and just seeing like what everything is on the table. And I'm just like, this doesn't look super fun. Like, here's this guy, he's got 4 knights. Cool. Here's this guy, he's got 3 knights or whatever. Here's this guy, he's got 3 flyers. Here's this guy, he's got like 3 of this super broken thing. Here's this guy, he's got 3 of this super broken thing. And there was like 6 lists total that I could tell from, not knowing the game. Mm-hmm. And it just repeated. It was like, this is... No thanks. Like, I would much rather play, Carson Burns' like 80 grunt army that has you at like -7 to hit just out of spite, and like just be on the table with models as opposed to like, here's my 3 knights, here's your 3 planes, let's see who's better right now, planes or knights, and they're like, and boom.
I'm not saying there's no skill, but it's just a different game that I'm not.
It's totally different.
I'm not there for it. Yeah, I've made the joke a few times when people like ask me, what do you think about this 40K thing? And I'm like, what's 40K? Just because I'm so.
You're so far removed.
I'm so far removed and not about it. Last time I played was in 5th, and I did play because I moved to that town where 40K was the game, and so you just play the game, right? So it was living in Eau Claire. 40K is the game in Eau Claire. At least was at that time period. Hopefully they've learned better by now. But it was 40K. So I played 40K. I had fun with it, fun enough, but like my heart was never fully in the game for whatever reason, and it wasn't like it is now. They didn't have stratagems. They didn't have like deep strike, shoot, deep strike, shoot. Like it wasn't quite like that. Yeah, I don't know. They have some cool models. I like the setting, because sci-fi settings are fucking cool, and if you've got space demons, I'm all about that, but it's just, yeah, I don't know, not my full thing. And LLV is just plugging real quick that the stat show's coming back to Honest Wargamer. It's been a little bit away from that. So, hooray, AOS stat show. Not much of a scene. Yeah, as soon as the Fountain of Youth, as soon as Fountain of Youth went out of business for the 3rd time, it pretty much, it was pretty much done. But I had moved to Milwaukee by then. It's just where I went to college, and then lived for a few years after. But yeah. No, the Eau Claire, it was really just, and that's one of those occasions where it was just our friends got each other into 40K after it, like the sort of ebb tide had happened, and there was only like 3 of us left playing, and it's like, oh, let's just conscript some new people to play. And that would have been a really good time to get into Warhammer fantasy stuff again, I think. But
super shady about it.
You're talking about the second. You're talking about the second Fountain of Youth. That's
very specific.
Yeah, you're talking about the second Fountain of Youth, where he basically had like a TV at the back room, and it was never clean, and he barely had any models or anything on the shelf to sell. Yeah, before your wargaming career. No, I was Warhammer Fantasy Battle through middle school, high school, went to college, got into 40K a little bit, got more into 40K after college, moved back here, played like 2 games of 40K at the Greenfield GW, which was still 40K, would have been right around the time of like probably about 2006 or 7 or 8, somewhere in there. I'd have to do actual math going backwards, and I don't feel like that. Subtraction.
Yeah, math on the radio is what everyone...
Yeah, and then it was just like, I played like 2 games, and just like, without my friends playing it, I found that I couldn't hold an interest in 40K. And that's the thing is, like, I wonder if now, like, say everyone in the scene suddenly switches to 40K, would I follow them into 40K, or just, like, become a hobbyist and paint my, like, AOS stuff by myself? I'd probably become a hobbyist at that point, such is my lack of interest in 40K. But, that's nothing against them. That's just their game. And if they like it, cool. But it's not my thing. Yeah, it was like the 40K version of an opium den. Yeah, that was the second Fountain of Youth. And now there's a third Fountain of Youth. And each time it has been different management, or like half of the management from the previous one. And then it's a clusterfuck. I used to play Magic at the original Fountain of Youth, and they were pretty good. But that's where I won my standard tournament. Got pro points, baby.
Literal fist fight over a game. My God.
My local store is all 40K and saw a literal fist fight over a game.
So what's your best bad gaming story?
God.
It can be anything. Preference being wargaming, but yeah, sure. Like it can be Magic, it can be Street Fighter, it can be 40K, it can be Sigmar.
My best story is as a TO. This is on the tail end of being competitive League of Legends player. So I want you to know, like, I actually ran like 130, 140 person League of Legends tournaments, and I was on the alt squad for what was originally Curse. I believe they're Team Liquid now. Now on the alt squad, as an alternate, quote unquote, I was like a second or third string jungler. All that meant is I queued up in games with them and got my ass beat by the real team. But I had a rapport and I knew a few. This is when Yin Dragoon was still on the team. This is before the ranked system is the ranked system that you know today. I had a team of like full platinums, fucking just like we're in the top fucking 4%. We're the fucking best in the world. Just like shitlords. Think of a douchebag MOBA player, and if you don't know what a douchebag MOBA player is like, just think of a 40k player who would fight someone with their fists at a table. That's a douchebag MOBA player. All right. So like it's but this team had like they had drawn it was Swiss pairings, random bracket, best of threes, and top and then the finals was a best of, or it was the first few rounds were best of ones until we got into the, I think it was the quarterfinals. We switched to best of threes for semis, and then it was best of fives for the finals. It was ran over 2 days. I had a bunch of pods. I was running this huge tournament at ASEN. The one team, I can't even remember the name at this point, was so convinced they were going to win. They were get that fucking Rise skin and fucking a billion RP or whatever. They were fucking locked in. There was real cash prizes sponsored by ASEN itself. They were fucking going to crush everybody. But then there was this one team they drew into that had like a challenger on it and then like a bunch of platinums. They had created an account in the game with my name just with a 0 and started fucking spamming that other team that their game had been pushed, so that they got a DQ. And so like I have those guys show up halfway through like basically the next round being told that their time slot was in the later round. And now it's like I have the hard decision to make, because over the course of investigating, I find out that this other team had been like fucking messaging them, pretending to be me, but I didn't have any full information to corroborate that this is what they had done. Like, so it was just my very strong information gathering skills, like, but I can't fucking prove it. So like, I have to stand with the DQ on the one group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so then, okay, it's finals. Best of 5. Some no-name team with, like, a bunch of, like, silvers and bronzies. And, like, around halfway through, I had caught on that, like, one of them was, like, some alternate player from one of my old teams, or from one of the rival teams wherever when I was coming up, who was, like, basically borderline about to make it as a Twitch streamer. You know, like, you know this guy. I can't remember his name. They fucking blow up the cheaters. Just destroy them. 3-0, no contest. We're talking like 15-minute games. It was glorious witnessing real-time karma happen like that in such a final fashion. So it was... Like, this story has a little bit of a happy ending, because, like, one team, the group of diamonds were being super shady because they saw one challenger that they drew into. And I learned some... Yeah, and so I learned some like, hard lessons that day. And I had thought I had learned hard lessons as a Magic the Gatherer player, as someone who had won money at Magic and MOBAs and shooters and fighters and, like, all the stuff I did before I broke my hand. Like, I thought I had just... Like, I had seen it all from, like, the player perspective, and I didn't even know the lows that tournament players would go to on the TO side. Yeah, we stopped speaking English a few minutes ago. To summarize, douchebag players cheated and got what was coming to them. It was pretty great. But that's, like, my worst story. It's the worst I've ever felt as a tournament organizer, because I had to stick with the ban. I had to ban the people for being late. Like, you didn't... You didn't get a message from me. The email I've been using this whole time, or the text message I've been, or the phone I've been texting you on the whole time, it wasn't from me. You should have been cognizant of that fact. Like, well, we were getting conflicting messages. We were getting conflicting messages about our time. Because someone was clearly fucking scamming you. Like, go with the official account. You know? And so it's like... And so ever since then, I've had to put shit in tournament packs like, this is the only account that will message you. You know? Because of that hard lesson. And then, you know, a couple years later, I quit running video game stuff. And, you know, but that sour taste never left me. But the thing is like, I don't... And maybe it's there in the Age of Sigmar scene, and I just haven't seen it yet, but I haven't gotten that vibe yet from any of the players. You get some people that are like, I call them fast and loose, question everything you do, man. Like, there's that type of player that's kind of my kryptonite. And you just guard from that by being by being a better player yourself, and you can guard from that guy. But, like, that's the closest I've seen to, like, someone kind of feeling shady at the really at the table. And I feel there's people probably cheat, but the thing is, the game is so robust that, like, the type of cheats you can do are pretty obvious. And that's where, like, good TOs, which is what I feel we do have in this particular circuit, really compensate for a lot. But with League of Legends, it's fucking Vietnam.
Jesus.
So
I've got my gaming story for you, if you'll have me.
Yeah, go back to wargaming, because I'm sorry I put half the chat to sleep talking about how much I fucking hate. The other thing is, hang on, let me finish this up. I do feel like because Age of Sigmar does have such chill people in it, there is an element that leaves themselves open to be taken advantage of a little bit by someone with ill intent. And that's where, like, my experience from TOing, like, and stuff like that, like, I'm really hyper aware of that, and I feel like a little bit of a big brother at the tournament scene because of shit like that. And so, like, you're gonna bother me if I see you doing stuff like that to, like, my friends and my players. That's why I'm happy that people like you exist in our scene, because that guy shows up, he's just gonna get his shit pushed in by Brendan Melnick or Brad Schwant or Luke or any of these great players.
Oh, and I relish beating the bejesus out of guys who don't belong there.
Like,
man.
Like,
I got a guy like that at NashCon, and he was playing a change host and didn't understand how his army worked, and man, did I make him pay for that. It was so happy.
So is this your great story? Is this the rabbit hole before your great story?
Oh, this is the rabbit hole before the great story.
All
I'm
right,
not gonna. So the great story. I was 17 years old, and it was the summer. So all of us high school kids were hanging out at our local games workshop, and that was it was just in a strip mall. The town over front where I grew up in, and that's where we all hung out. And there was this guy named Crazy Steve. And his name wasn't Crazy Steve. His name was Steve. We called him Crazy Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And Crazy Steve was a grown-ass man. Crazy Steve was probably 6'3" to 6'5", 285 to 300 pounds.
You're painting a real picture with words here. This is great radio.
Yeah. Big motherfucker. Huge dude. And a grown-ass man. Like, he's not, like, just some big high schooler. Like this guy's a man.
He was a man.
He was, yes. And we had this young guy, Marquise. And Marquise was a freshman in high school. He just finished his freshman year. He's going to be a sophomore. And Marquise had a tendency to be a little bit annoying. And I understood that. Marquise had done or said something so egregious that Crazy Steve, you've seen, like, those big Games Workshop tables, right? Where they're wood all the way around. They've got the Realm of Battle.
The lip.
Yeah. He tossed one of those and then chased Marquise around the store until the police showed up, tased Crazy Steve, got banned from the store, obviously, I'm a man. I'm 40. And Crazy Steve wasn't allowed to come in the store anymore unless he was accompanied by his mother or a police officer. Now, Crazy Steve worked at the Jewel Osco that was right around the corner in the strip mall. So Crazy Steve liked to spend his breaks standing outside the game's workshop, staring in, smoking a cigar. Oh, man. Oh, Crazy Steve.
Oh, see, like, that's where, like, I think, yeah, that's, first off, that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
Nerds are passionate about stuff. That's what makes us fucking nerds. And so I get that, and I respect that. When I was talking before about, like, the Age of Sigmar scene and comparing it to, like, fighters and MOBAs and stuff, like, there is some stuff in the scene, whatever, and certainly probably more, like, globally, and the more you get away from, like, where people literally know you. So, like, if you're a fucking cheater, they're just gonna fucking haze you out of the scene, right? Like, because they know you, they see you, like, you're just not, whatever, you're gonna get a reputation. But, like, the other portion of it is, that, like, I just haven't seen it. Even the bad stuff I've seen or heard or read is not nearly as bad as some of the shit I've seen in some of these other scenes, you know? Like, and like, I guess slow play is frustrating. Swapping sports scores is frustrating. And I'm like, really? Because, like, in Magic the Gathering, that's just what you do. You know? Like, that's the default setting. Like, yeah, it's cheating, but it's like, you know, it's cheating in the sense that, like, it's so difficult to prove that it's barely worth calling in the scene. And so, like, everybody who you just fucking learn to do it or deal with it. Like, oh, he was slow playing me. Of fucking course he was. He's control. It's what you do. Steal game one and then slow play somebody's ass. Like, that's how they fucking do it. And you can barely call them on it at a tournament. Like, it's you know what I'm saying? Like, and so, like, people are like, oh, fucking slow play in Age of Sigmar. Slow play in Age of Sigmar. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It sucks. But, like, it's literally the default setting of a Magic the Gathering player. Like, and so, like, learning to lose quick so that you can crush them with your counter, with your sideboard and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with Age of Sigmar and slow play, it has everything to do with accountability at the table. One, both players are accountable to each other to play at a responsible pace, but it's, in my mind, also the responsibility of the other person to be like, hey man, like we got to get going, and if the person doesn't oblige, that's when you get the TO involved, and you know, you got to be an adult about it. That's how it works. Like there's a set of rules, and you know, I don't think complaining about it in the aftermath is necessarily useful or productive to fix it.
And this is maybe where, like, I think a little bit of improvement can be had, because leaving, like, you know, there's the babes in the wild moment for every person who goes to a tournament. And if you read everything online, you're just going to think tournaments are the most cutthroat, horrible thing ever. And you tend to find the table you belong on, and you'll have a fine experience. But I think, like, for instance, at your tournament, something you explicitly did was time in the round, sports scores. Most people just go yes, 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 and they just circle the things for the sports and walk away from the table, unless they just had a terrible game, and then they're like, ah, punitive motherfucker. You know, that's why we had the 55 way tie at fucking Adept the Gun. So you're just like, whatever, and you actually, loudspeaker, if your opponent is not there setting up, he is late. You know, like, you set it every round. And so there's, like, that's, like, on the TO where you're helping the players, because, like I said, there is this sort of, like, babes in the wild moment where you go to a tournament and you're not sure what tournament etiquette is, and you kind of learn, like, baptism by, like, you know, by fire. Or, you know, jump in, kid, it's the deep end of the pool, figure it out. Like, you don't know where I can tell a TO I think this guy's being shady, or, like, because a lot of people saunter up to you, they're super nice, and you're not sure, you have that moment where, are you fake nice, or are you nice to, you know, to mess with me, and so then I don't call you on, oh no, shit, dude, oh, was that where my model was, man? Oh, I'm sorry, bro. Like, that, you know, that guy, right? So, you like anything else, you have to, someone made a great post about the stigma of calling a judge on Twitter. Have to get used to it. Yeah, and being respectful even in a discussion or confrontation is really important. I just remember Acon 18, the round after ours, I hit a 1-0 Fire Slayer player. I caught on first battle round and just killed all his allies. He was so surprised when he lost. Only got through 2 turns. Huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's rough. And I think I roughly remember the Fire Slayers player. So good for you, man.
Well, the original Fire Slayers was the teleport to the objective and win. Like,
yeah, it was the term alpha bunker, right? Where you strung things out. If the breaking your unit coherency didn't matter. Something that I abused to the fullest extent to the letter of the law.
Especially with death.
Oh yeah, I had a 40 brick of skeletons that was just everywhere in my game 3. It was so frustrating.
A thing of beauty.
I personally felt that the unit coherency rule was in some way, shape, or form written with me in mind. I know that's not the case because the Fire Slayers list were more egregious.
Right.
Where you'd have most of it strung out here, but you'd have the one guy near the banner, so you were getting all of the saves and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't move anymore because it's out of coherency, so it can't move from off of the objective. It's just fucking like mining points on. Yeah.
Yep. Nailed it. Yep.
Yeah. 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 I don't know. Like I feel like that this talking tournaments and stuff might like I guess you get like you get a mixed if you read Facebook and you read Twitter. I think you get a certain perspective. Like I think for once in the world it's like opposite day where like the casuals are more of a toxic element than people who want to, because there's a difference between like someone who goes to tournaments and someone who's playing for top tables at a tournament. You know, Trunzo is in chat. I don't know if he still is. This is like he's a paragon of like can win every single award no matter what. This is like what a he'll win the sports, he'll win the hobby, he'll win the tournament. Like he is a absolute, and like you're like. If you were to lump nasty, toxic tournament players and, like, you meet Adam Trunzo, you're just like, this is not what you're going to... this is not the 40K guy who's going to throw punches or throw hands at a table. But there's a toxic casual element where they obviously it's born from ignorance. Obviously it's born from reading what you see on the internet. You just think every tournament is going to be Nudgegate, right? They're just... I don't... Maybe I don't know. Maybe Trump. I've only had like one extended conversation with him in person, and most of it's been on Twitter or proximately. Maybe you're the type to throw hands, dude. I don't know. Like I'll insult his display board, and he's just like, "Fuck it, that's it, dude. Go time." See, that's an inside joke because he makes magnificent display boards. If you're not familiar with them, fantastic display boards. Like we're talking like new technology folding display board, crazy ass shit.
Oh, they're beautiful. I'm so happy with mine.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I love it.
Yeah.
The Christians in a suitcase one, that was fucking brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. They're excellent. So yeah, insult the display board. He throws hands. Like my precious. No, I think there's a little bit of that, and like I've in one calendar year of tournaments about every other month, I think I had 2 bad games, like specifically 2 bad games I really remember, and I wouldn't in either of them say anyone was fucking trying to cheat me. And when I played Relian, I know he's got this monster of a reputation, Detroit and all that. Fucking professional at the table, efficient, knew his rules. I was surprised that he had to ask me some of mine. I thought he just had them all fucking memorized, but I guess not.
Now, see, this is an advanced stat trick for you here, where he knows your rules. He wants to make sure that you know them. Advanced
strat? Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see what's going on here.
And I could just be making that up from his end, but that's something that I'll do, where I'll know what my opponent are, but I will ask them questions to make sure that they know.
Okay.
And if those questions start getting answered in a very unusual way to begin with, I adjust for later phases of that game interaction.
All right. Night, Brad. Yeah, I think that's it. I was God, I was playing against somebody, and I've been to 20 tournaments, and like they did something that I personally dislike, which is they don't measure before they roll the charge roll.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
I'm like, measure before, so we establish the value, and now we know if you need a 6, you need a 6, you need a 7, you need a 7, but we don't have that thing where like, oh, dude, I was closer, but then I bumped the model. We don't fucking run into that situation. Models get bumped, legit, fine. But like, I don't know you, right? And like, I don't want us to have that gray area and you have that negative experience, because I think I have a pretty fucking excellent memory of where my models were. But you might think I'm cheating you. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure ahead of time, say, is that 7 inches? Asking those questions. Establishing...
Yeah, just at the end of movement, this is where it is, and you're like, agreed, and you move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and so asking someone their rules is maybe the next version of, like, establishing that sort of litmus test, Jacob Berry mentioned on one of his episodes of Rage of Sigmar, how he gauges an opponent when he walks up to the table on what type of game they want. And he said it specifically in the context of Skaven. And he mentioned how, like, if he sees, like, a beer and pretzels guy who's just there on their, like, suboptimal list to have fun, he won't cast his rat trap. Like, he's like, I can beat him without it. And I know this is not you. You're like, what is this concept?
Yeah, it's the mercy he has in his heart.
Yeah, he hasn't learned the hard lessons of life yet to have the cold dead heart that is necessary to do what it takes. This is why he can only win 30-point person events and not 50 or 200.
I think the reality of it is I haven't learned like the cold hard lessons in life to be kind to somebody. It's like more realistically what it is, because like overwhelmingly the people I interact with are older than me.
Okay.
The grand exception being Isaiah and a couple of folks, but I'm still kind of the young guy. And maybe with age I'll find some peace in playing normal hammer.
Normal hammer? I think I'm in that weird. I'm in the place where I do kind of gauge my opponent. I have a different game with Tobin versus what I'd probably have with Jacob, I bet. Jacob.
See, I have a special relationship with Tobin Prime where he likes to brag about his old win rate against me, and I take every opportunity I can to beat the pants off of him.
But that's part of the banter and the relationship. And that's the thing. You go to enough tournaments, you begin to form relationships and stuff like that. Man, it would really suck to have to like walk up to a table blind and play Brendan Melnick round 1 and just get your shit pushed in. But if you go to enough tournaments, you're going to find out he's actually kind of a cool guy with a soft spot for actual models that he wants to paint and make them look good.
Yeah, I've been accused of this softness, and I don't appreciate the rumors.
Right.
I have one sportsmanship award that I get to leave on until I die.
Yeah. Man.
Yes, it came at an event that was mostly attended by Detroit players. However,
so like win by default.
Kind of like I got announced sportsmanship, and I asked the TO in seriousness, "Are you sure?" And my club was sitting there like, what?
Well, I mean, so like Haywo, Haywo's got like he would be more likely to reward someone like you as a player. I think a sports award. Like, if totally didn't know either of us, he'd be more likely to reward you his sports vote than me, because he likes the professional, just like business player. He's the to put it in like a different metaphor.
A clean game.
Yeah, to put it in a different metaphor, when I go get my hair cut, I don't want you to talk to me. I will give you more money if you shut your mouth. I just want the haircut and to leave. But with Age of Sigmar, I play Age of Sigmar for different reasons than, getting a haircut, obviously. But I think that's like the sports vote equivalent, where like you'll get a bigger tip if you don't talk. I think that's a parallel between that sort of like awarding style. Like, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's like I was surprised at Brew City when you said Andrew. I'm like, because Tolstead was there, and I'm like, he's way nicer than me.
Yeah, that was a shockingly close race, and I actually had Ty and who else was it? I think it was Eric.
Christian
were tied. They were tied at 3 points apiece, and
we all had 4 favorite sports.
Yeah, that's what it was.
We all had 4 favorite sports. We all had 4 favorite opponent votes. No one had 5.
Yeah, because the first tiebreaker in my sportsmanship was the minor sportsmanships, which was on time, played right, and all that. And Ty had lost a point for being late in round 4,
which was an objective truth you established by announcing it on the microphone.
Correct. He was also playing against my friend Zach Cachetta out of the Chicago area, who is the kind of player who is objective like that, where it was just gonna be a no even if I didn't announce it.
Yeah.
I had Bryce pull him aside and be like, "Hey man, you're gonna lose this on this tiebreaker. I'm sorry."
Yeah, but that formed a great bond between me and Ty, though. That right there, because then I go on to drink. I do go on to fucking drink from the sports trophy, and challenge him to do the same, and then we have our Midwest Meltdown showdown. And that's the thing is like,
and he drank you under the table.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You're remembering somebody else. I got foggy. I didn't get drunk, and that's the worst place to be in. I expected to get fucking drank under the table. That's the thing is, like, I got to the worst place. I didn't get my drunk superpowers from being actually hammered and where, like, my inhibition goes that I care about you anymore and then I just crush you. So I didn't get to that level of play, which happens in all the other competitive stuff. So I know that's one way of unlocking it. And I didn't, like, stay just tipsy to, like, be completely functional. I got foggy, which is the in-between terrible place. Foggy is where you're just, like, you're sluggish and you have, like, you need one more great drinker to start doing shots to, like, get the energy. So,
yeah,
like,
I've only been inebriated tournament once,
and
it was doubles 2018 Adepticon. Round 2, we played against the Blood Tithe team. Every time that a beer tithe, every time a blood tithe was generated, we had to have a drink.
Oh.
And I used to be a capable drinker when I was a collegiate gymnast and was drinking all the time to manage my pain. And that's a different story. And so we roll up into round 3, and thankfully Tobin can handle his alcohol. I really wasn't capable at that moment in time. And we get up to this table, and they hand me the list, and I look at them, and I'm sure it came off even worse than it normally would in my sober state. And I looked at them and I said, "Your lists are illegal." And just like that, "Your lists are illegal." And they looked at me, they're like, "Well, okay, and?" I said, "Well, okay, and you gotta fix that." Like, "Well, we played the last 2 rounds." And I said, "I don't give a shit what your last 2 rounds were. Your lists are illegal at this table." And
see, there's that black heart we love. No, I'm kidding. Go on. Black heart without inhibitions is like the like your nega version, like.
So right, so they're kind of looking at me. We're in this Latvian standoff, and they're like, "Okay, well," and I said, "Well, you've got 2 options, and I'll put it to you very plainly. Option 1, you can take the command traits and artifact off characters. Option 2, I'm going to go to the TO and have them remove them from your list. Your call."
Yeah.
And they chose to take the command traits and artifacts off of off of their models. They gave my team a 2 on sportsmanship after we beat them with some solid rolls at the end. The only model we had left at the end of the game was Nagash. And here I am, like, drunk savanting my way through a Warhammer game, like, YOLO soloing their 2K army of Fire Slayers and Seraphon with Nagash.
Man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Frank, you didn't let us cheat. What a bad sport. So I went over to Brad after the game, and I was like, hey, man, like, I got a 2 on sportsmanship. Like, is this going to impact, like, best in faction? He goes, oh, an Adepticon, best in faction has nothing to do with sportsmanship. It's all about your in-game battle points. And I said, so what you're telling me, Brad, is I can just whip my dick out on the table and what are we going to do about this?
Call the cops.
And settle it. So that you'll also remember at the end of that Adepticon was the Why Are Death Players Such Bad Sportsmanship?
You're the reason I went on my vendetta for, like, my quest for a year.
And so, well, that's not why. It had everything. But
no, I think about it that way.
And so Brad sent it to me, with the picture of. He goes, I saw this and I thought of you immediately in the conversation we had Friday. It's like, look, I think I was reasonable in the singles 2K, where, you know, that was fine, but man, oh man, was I just an absolute dickhead.
Well, you didn't say it, well, yeah, because, like, how you say things is a big difference between, you know, like, learning to ask a question instead of telling them they're wrong, right? Which is, I think, the light version of what you were getting at, where asking someone their rules to, like, see if they know them, but, like, you know, I've used it like, oh, is that, oh, and, you know, which model does that? You know, where you like, you know that they're wrong, but, like, you don't want to be like, you're fucking wrong, dude. That model doesn't do that. And so, like, learning, you know, basic social skills in a social game is a big deal if you want to go for sports. But yeah, like, there's a subjective quality sometimes of sports scores that suck. But I'm not willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater on sports scores, because for every time, one, TOs can compensate, right? You can do something like you throw out the worst sports score, or you take out the voting system, like 1 to 5, take out the linear scale. People are always going to find a way to game a system if you can game a system, but also, like, being a nice person is you kind of gaming the system back, even if normally you're a little bit more blunt, right? So,
yep.
like, so it's like, it's if it's a system, it can be gamed. Trading sports scores or literally giving people money for sports scores maybe starts to get a little beyond the pale there, which I hear now is
never 5 get.
Yeah, or never 5 get, but, like,
hashtag Margaritagate.
Oh my god, it's the same dude twice now. Like, like, goddamn, it's like the fucking, oh man, yeah. And to think, like, oh man, I can't even go down. There are some rabbit holes Mephisto's not willing to go down. Sure, take the system away, but if you take the system completely away, do we start a slow descent towards 40k? I don't know the answer to that. I just have a hypothesis. Yeah, I don't know. Sports trophies are fun. It gives people another way to play the game and something else to aim for. They know they're not going to beat Brendan and some of these guys at the table, but they can at least try to fucking friendly them to death and get best sports scores and walk away with it with some hardware. Like, yeah, and the thing is like, cheating and a new player not knowing their rules look suspiciously the same. If you don't know the person, you don't know the difference. Yeah. And this is, I think the thing is, I think some of this stuff is self-correcting. Well, self-policing, but if you have a more educated player base, because you have people as fucking awesome as me telling you exactly what tournament etiquette looks and sounds like, and you have good TOs making decent packs, you change the system, you know. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, is like, you separate sports trophy from the combined score. Fine. Same thing with paint scores. Yeah, fine. No, there's nothing wrong with. No, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying don't throw the fucking whole system out.
And it's one of the things that like I want that aspect to be rewarded in the overall.
Yeah.
But you have to make it so that it's not the like you can't have super friendly nice man jumping guy that went 5-0 after being 3-2. Like I would much rather, if I've got two guys that are 5-0, I want the guy who was friendly and nice and the better painter to be the one that wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that comes down to like, I mean, early on I was kind of for like a universal sort of like TO pack that we all kind of used and stuff. But the more I've played, I really have changed my opinion on that. Where it's like, I think the flavor of the tournaments from the people running it, I think having a league or a circuit that uses a common thing is fucking cool. Like, I think that's cool. But, you know, so like have a circuit or a challenger league or something like that. Oh, the 40k man screaming drunkenly at the end of Adepticon? Who was he playing? Wasn't he playing fucking Isaiah or something?
No.
That was a different
something else.
That was something else. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the community does self-police. Maybe I'd like a little bit more from the top down. You know, there are things you can change, but again, throwing out the system of like sports entirely, removing it from overall score, fine. But don't get rid of it. I think it gives other people something to play for. I do think. Okay, so here's a scenario: someone is just being fake nice, but they're really an asshole in reality, just because of sports scores. What's the problem? Then, if they're forced to be fake nice, then you have one less asshole to deal with in a day than a guy who just can't contain the fact that he's a gigantic asshole. Like, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm used to people being fake something every day across all spectrum. At least if you're being forced to be fake nice in a game, whatever. So, you're like, on one hand, I am really about people being themselves, and but we play in a game where people do have social anxieties. Maybe they could be on the spectrum because, you know, there's a certain appeal to board games and stuff like that to people who are on the spectrum. People who do just have social like social issues from any plethora of reasons, like punishing people for like not learning to socialize correctly. Okay, maybe not the best way. Rewarding them for learning to do a little bit better, probably a little. I think that's a little bit better. It could just be my hot take though. I'm an auditor. Nobody likes me.
I'm an auditor too. Like, I don't. You just gotta sell it right.
Yeah, you spin it right. You make it part of your persona. You start to act like a WWE wrestling heel, and then you get to really have fun with it. Like, if that's, I guess what I'm saying is, from the last RantCast, I said I wanted walk-up music for Age of Sigmar tournaments. That's really just what I'm saying here. Is like, walk-up music would solve the sports problem.
Well, I've made the offer to you. Table.
Oh, you've cut out. You made the offer.
Oh no! I said I've made the offer to you. If you want to run the tournament, I've got the tables.
You know what? Yeah. No one's supposed to know that I might be doing a tournament again. I don't know why I would be veiling it. Thank you. I can't play that whole thing, or this VOD won't. Thank you, LLV. Mine is Triumph, Wu-Tang Clan. Feel free to listen to it on your own. Fucking bumping Wu-Tang playing Death. There's just something about that I find hilarious, especially since they have like a very heavy like Asian influence. And it's just, it fucking fits. It's funny. I don't know why you're not laughing. Man. So, any lasting final?
Yeah, at the 3.5 hour mark of an impromptu episode, even though we've got a scheduled one on Monday.
Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna talk about.
I think Monday we can be, you know, the get into the more like actual serious stuff, I suppose, of like your other RantCasts where you're interviewing people.
Well, you're gonna have to recap Dragonfall for me first of all.
True. Hopefully, it's with the second dragon beside me.
Yeah. So hopefully you can recap Dragonfall, and then maybe we can do a little bit meatier, in-depth dive at stuff. We might know some stuff by Saturday.
Yep. I can do more origin stories.
I plan to actually I dodged the origin story of you specifically. You know, we got a snippet of you a little bit, but I didn't ask you explicitly, hey, how did you get into this hobby and that journey? So my intent is to ask about that a little bit, cover Dragonfall a bit through your lens, and then go a little bit deeper on OBR, because this is a release that deserves all the attention. Fuck all the Cities attention out there. All these Cities players and their stupid Cities army.
Oh, one thing before we go, episode 38 of the Cubic Shenanigans podcast just went live on iTunes and Podbean and Spotify and all the good places. So we cover Warclans. It's back to our normal episode where we cover everything else, and go give it a listen. We've had a record month here in October, even before this Warclans episode came out. So we really appreciate anybody who's been doing the listening and downloading, and we'd appreciate anybody else who'd give us a go, and any feedback that you have. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna second that. I have two podcasts that I never miss. It's Cubic Shenanigans and it's Plan and Slan.
Yep.
They're different podcasts. You're getting different content, which is why I listen to both. It's not like I'm gonna listen to my fifth somebody read a battle tome this week, you know. No, it's like Cubic Shenanigans. What I find is really awesome is you get like Brendan's sort of like phantom goofiness, but you get the sort of like hard-boiled, straightforward takes on like, this is what the rules do, this is why this is good. You get that perspective. And then Dan is just like kind of the passion side of it, who's just like he loves 40K and he wants you to hear about it. And
yeah, Dan is all energy.
Yeah,
he's just,
it's a really good point counterpoint style show. That's really worth a listen to. You're gonna get some good in-depth knowledge. It's kind of a learning show, I think it would be how I'd frame it. It's very much, you're supposed to like be taught something or learn something or take something away from that show, whereas this is obviously way more freeform. I hope you learned.
It's just chaos made manifest.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. So, yeah. What the fuck's Mechanicus? Is that a 40K thing? That other game I don't play? I don't know, man.
To the ban list.
Yeah, ban them. No, I'm kidding.
It's been a rough night for the ban list.
Yeah, the ban list has really gotten a big exercise tonight. People bashing Nagash and stuff. Oh man, no. Yeah, check that out. When did you say that's going live?
It's live right now. I got the text while you and I have been talking here. That it's up and available. So if it's on your stream, you should be hitting pretty soon. And if you haven't listened before, go check it out. If you hate it, tell us why, and I'll consider it.
By the way, my favorite segment is This and That they did not do for Cities, because he was trying to eclipse the sun here on runtime. Like,
that book, man. Oh my god.
Nearly 4 hours, and he edits the audio down some, doesn't he?
He sure does.
Yeah.
Like, we were there at his condo for like 5 hours. Yeah.
But then they cut my favorite segment from it, which is at the end. It's This or That. It really is just a. Well, I'll let you annotate it. I'll let you.
Yeah. So This or That was originally supposed to be a segment. So originally on Cubic Shenanigans, I was just supposed to be like the AOS reporter, and the original co-host did not have the best ability, which is availability, and so I got bumped to the co-host chair. And at the end, it was supposed to be for asking guests and things like that. 5 questions per co-host. They're supposed to be binary questions, and it morphed into, because we couldn't get a guest every episode, it morphed into Dan and I asking each other questions that were either pertinent to the episode or just things on our mind. And it's turned into I want to say trinary, but that feels like the wrong word.
Well, it reminds me of Tiki and Tierney do in or out.
Mhm.
They do, are you in or are you out? They do a little bit like that, but like fucking Tierney can never not caveat his responses, so like you get that tertiary thing. It reminds me a little bit
Yeah.
of that, but the thing yeah, go ahead, finish.
And like I've started asking open-ended questions, and
It's
we've moved into like an obligatory one sports ball question per person.
Yeah.
Because Dan and I have a significant overlap in terms of our love for college football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cool because it's like I think it's so I my stupid writer brain always turns on. I think it's like a weird progressing narrative that you don't realize is a progressing narrative of the audience is learning the two of you better.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's your little corner of chaos on cubic shenanigans, which is really what it is. It's like the crystallized RantCast, you know, like down into just this or that. But that's my favorite portion. They cut it from Cities, which is why Cities is the worst battle tome. There you have it.
Fair enough.
I went the full turnaround. I was saying Cities was the most important battle tome that will be released this year. I have turned it around. It is the worst one because this or that got cut from the episode. Is it back for Uruk Warclans though? This is the
yeah.
end.
Uruk Warclans is back to a normal episode. That was still a longer recording time than we're normally used to. I haven't looked. The episode's probably about 3 hours long.
Yeah.
I think that we go over Warclans and discuss some of the real possibilities that exist in that book, and I have a strong inkling that there is something more lying just below the surface in that book that is going to give problems for those willing to buy and paint 120 Savage Orcs.
Do you think it's the Big Wah? Like just a sort of a general. Do you think it's the Big Wah? Do you think it's actually running as the Savage Orcs or as running as Iron Jaws? What do you think is the maybe the more home run potential and then the more like sort of aggregate average potential? I think they're two different. I think they're two different armies that fit those thresholds.
I think Iron Jaws are going to be the ones that hit hardest earliest.
Okay.
I think Bone Splitters are going to be the ones that have the longest staying power, and then I think the Big Wah is going to live in the middle.
Okay, so maybe like Big Wah is a good on-base percentage, but they're not hitting the home runs or the RBIs.
Yeah, it's going to require a person with a talented perspective to those two armies and the inter-meta mechanics within that faction. The meta currency that is Wah points.
So so Soren's got a question. What battalions are you talking about? OBR? I can answer that separately. What OBR battalions I want to see? I want to see an obligatory 3 monster battalion. If that's 3 catapults, so be it. Hopefully it's 3 Azar Harvesters. I want to see a cavalry smash face battalion that really rewards maybe even like an antithetical aggressive play. That I have a thing for when rules tell you what you're supposed to do with them. I want to see a battalion that says this is how you play this cavalry. It might be antithetical to the theme of like making good decisions and stuff, but I think even within that framework, you're gonna find some nuance to it. And then from there, I always like a wacky battalion. So I'd love a wacky battalion that kind of, maybe it's a weird spellcasting battalion. I don't get a spellcaster read from this army. I just don't get it. But maybe Archon's got one, or some sort of tag team champions of the world battalion where it's like Archon and
Besticros.
And Besticros, something like that. Those are battalions just kind of shoot in the dark. What I'd like to see. What about you? I could just say it. I could say ambiguously. I want to see a good battalion at all in Death. That would be fucking rad.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, Ghoul Patrol is good. At getting you into lower drops and scaring lesser players into being worried about your.
Yeah, it's just the one you can afford. It's not real. It's the one that you can afford to get an extra command point.
It's good for different reasons.
The threat of deployment chess is there, I guess. lowering your drops. It does the things battalions are just do these days, but like you don't even read the text on half of the battalions. You just check the points and what you have, and make sure that it's not a tax to put stuff in it, you know? And then you're like, okay, I'll play this. I would love to see a good battalion, but I barely count ghouls.
I want a Catacross battalion.
Catacross battalion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice. I have not checked out Bloodshed in the Shires. I don't even know what the hell that is.
It's a tournament.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Is that a UK one?
Yes.
Okay, no, I haven't checked it out.
I haven't looked either, so I can provide no information then. I'm aware that it exists.
Do I think they will have more than one in a legion? No, I think it's gonna be kind of true to form what we've seen. You're gonna have one per. You're gonna have like just sort of these generic battalions.
One per style.
Yeah. You're gonna.
One per Boneplate.
Seems excessive, but it would probably be general enough to where it could fit for two, but it's better for this one, obviously, and it kind of shows. So I think you're going to see a little bit of a more generic take. I think Age of Sigmar has really devalued, I should say deprioritized thoughtful battalions from a design standpoint. It's a take I've had for like one entire fucking calendar year, though. It just keeps getting reinforced with my confirmation bias every time a new book comes out. I'm like, battalions are shit. Sybarites is good. Sybarites is the type of battalion I want in literally every fucking army. You mean your command squad becomes one drop and gives you a command point for something you have to roll? Yes. I want that in fucking every army. Why can't all of my armies allow me to drop 6 heroes without it being a goddamn liability? Like, Sybarites is great. And then you take like the Hellstriders one because piling in is pretty fucking cool when you can run and charge if you don't quite get in there. Iron Fist son. Well, yeah, I mean, but that's the thing is orcs have traditionally good battalions. So they like that was like their shtick for practically an entire edition and a half. Sylvaneth had good battalions, but they kind of lost them a little bit. So it's like it's a wash for me that IJ kept good battalions if Sylvaneth lost them. And it's not that I don't think there are good battalions, I just don't think they're a priority in design space. I think that whatever their criteria is for designing them, I don't know if it's like list A number one, the thing they have to fucking really consider. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the inside track on that. I just from a outsider perspective, when I see battalions, I'm like, I like that.
We had a guy in the chat. He wouldn't tell us.
Yeah, we had a guy in the chat. Is Catacross gonna have a battalion? I'd love to see that. Yeah. Cavalry, because you gotta have a cavalry one. But the thing is like, have I looked at cavalry battalions and been disappointed? Yeah. Fuck, the cavalry army IDK doesn't have a proper battalion for their fucking eels.
I mean, they do, but it's junk.
It's such junk. Yeah. So it's like that's the thing is like I'm not really holding out hope for basically anything. I'd be happy to see there we go. I'd boil it down. One good battalion. That's what I want. A good battalion. Yeah. All right, everybody. Brendan,
that's my bedtime.
Yeah, I'm surprised you outlasted both Tomb Dad and Frank though. So
yeah.
So hell yeah.
And tomorrow's D&D night, so now I'm extra liable to fall asleep early.
Tell Ty he's welcome. Any last thoughts? Any closing statements?
No. I
feel good.
Looking forward to talking to you in a couple days.
Yeah, he'll be right back here a couple days to recap Dragonfall, and we'll talk some more about Ossiarch Bone Reapers and Hobby Shame again. We got to keep the streak going. In the meantime, everybody, I want you to drink your milk, keep those bones strong, and pay your taxes.
There you go. Good night.